I remember the exact moment my life shattered into unrecognizable pieces. It wasn't when I found the text messages, or when I noticed the late nights at work, or even when I smelled the unfamiliar cologne on her clothes. No, it was the moment I saw them together through the rain-streaked window of that roadside motel, their silhouettes merging in the dim light of room 14. My wife and my best friend of 20 years, locked in an embrace that erased everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Daniel Harmon. 3 months ago, I was an ordinary 45-year-old investment advisor with what I believed was an enviable life. A beautiful wife of 17 years named Elise, a spacious home in the suburbs, and a close circle of friends I'd known since college. Chief among them was Ryan Matthews, my roommate from freshman year, best man at my wedding, and the person I considered closer than a brother. What a cosmic joke that turned out to be. The day everything began to unravel was unremarkable. A Tuesday in April, the kind where spring teases its arrival with bursts of sunshine between cloud cover. I'd come home early from work, canceling my afternoon appointments after landing a significant new client. I wanted to surprise Elise with dinner reservations at the upscale Italian place she'd been hinting about for our upcoming anniversary. The house was quiet when I entered, but her car was in the driveway. "Elise?" I called, slipping off my loafers in the entryway. No answer. I loosened my tie and headed upstairs, thinking perhaps she was napping or in the shower. Our bedroom door was partially open. I pushed it wider, the familiar creak announcing my presence. "Hey, I was thinking we could..." The words died in my throat. Elise sat on our bed, her back to me, frantically closing tabs on her laptop. Her shoulders tensed at the sound of my voice, and she shut the computer with a snap that felt unnecessarily forceful. "Daniel, you scared me." She turned, her smile too bright, too sudden. "What are you doing home so early?" I remember thinking how strange it was that my wife of nearly 2 decades would ask that question instead of greeting me with a kiss. A small thing, easily dismissed by itself. But in that moment, something cold and unsettling slithered into my consciousness. "Wrapped up early. Thought I'd surprise you." I studied her face, noting the slight flush of her cheeks, the way her eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. "Everything okay?" "Of course. Just catching up on some work emails." She stood, smoothing her blouse with trembling hands. "I'm going to make some tea. Want some?" Before I could answer, she brushed past me. The faint scent of her perfume mingled with something else, something I couldn't immediately identify. I stood alone in our bedroom, staring at her closed laptop on the rumpled bedspread. The rational part of my brain suggested innocent explanations. She was planning my birthday surprise, researching a sensitive health issue, or simply wanted privacy. But another part, a primal instinct I'd never had reason to heed before, whispered that something was very wrong. I wish I'd listened to the rational voice. I wish I could go back to that moment and walk away from the laptop, preserve the life I thought I had for just a little longer. But curiosity, or perhaps some subconscious recognition of the truth, made me reach for it. The password was the same one she'd used for years. Our wedding anniversary, followed by her mother's maiden name. When the screen illuminated, it wasn't work emails that greeted me, but Facebook Messenger. And there, in a conversation she'd hastily tried to close, were the words that would detonate my existence. "Ryan, miss you already. Last night was incredible. Elise, I know. I can still feel you. Don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. He deserves better. Ryan, we'll figure it out. I've never felt this way about anyone. Not even Melanie." The messages continued, explicit details of their encounters, proclamations of feelings, and plans for their next meeting. My hands began to shake so violently that I nearly dropped the laptop. The room seemed to tilt and spin around me as my eyes scanned message after message. Weeks of conversations that painted a devastating picture. My wife and my best friend, the 2 people I trusted most in the world. My stomach heaved. I barely made it to the bathroom, retching until nothing remained but bitter bile and the acrid taste of betrayal. Through the pounding in my ears, I heard Elise calling from downstairs, asking if I wanted honey in my tea. Honey in my tea. The sheer mundanity of it against the backdrop of my collapsing reality almost made me laugh. Instead, I splashed cold water on my face and stared at my reflection. Who was this hollow-eyed stranger looking back at me? I hardly recognized myself. "I'm fine." I called down, my voice eerily steady. "Just a work call I need to make." That was the first lie in what would become a carefully orchestrated deception of my own. Because in that moment, as the initial shock began to crystallize into something harder and colder, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront them yet. I needed to know everything first. The full extent of their betrayal, how long, how deep, and most importantly, what they planned to do next. For the next week, I lived a double life. On the surface, I was the same Daniel. Attentive husband, dedicated professional, friend to Ryan when our paths crossed at our regular Thursday night drinks with our social circle. But beneath that facade, I was meticulously gathering evidence and information. I installed monitoring software on Elise's phone while she slept. I regained access to her laptop daily, documenting conversations. I checked credit card statements, finding charges for hotel rooms and restaurants in nearby towns on days she'd claimed to be shopping with her sister or attending work functions. I even followed her one afternoon, watching from across the street as she met Ryan at a cafe, their hands entwined on the table, her wedding ring conspicuously absent. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but I contained my bleeding heart behind a wall of determination. I needed the complete picture before I made my move. What I found was worse than I'd initially thought. This wasn't a recent indiscretion. Their affair had been going on for almost 8 months. 8 months of lies, of Ryan sitting in my home, drinking my scotch, laughing at my jokes while sleeping with my wife. 8 months of Elise kissing me goodbye in the morning and greeting me at night with the taste of my best friend still on her lips. The betrayal was total. And in their messages, a plan was forming. They were planning to tell me soon, to put me out of my misery, as Ryan so generously phrased it. Elise worried about the timing, about how I would take it. Ryan assured her I would be fine eventually, and that Daniel always lands on his feet. Their presumption to know how I would react to their betrayal ignited something dark and dangerous within me. They thought they knew me. They thought they could predict and control my response. That arrogance, more than anything, crystallized my resolve. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I would not follow their script of the devastated husband, the betrayed friend, who eventually gives them his blessing to pursue their true love. No, I would write a different ending to this story. But first, I needed more information about Ryan's life. Information I'd never bothered to examine closely before. On the surface, his situation mirrored mine in many ways. He had been married to Melanie for 15 years, with their relationship showing the same signs of comfortable middle age as mine and Elise's had. They had a daughter, Sophia, who was now 23 and had recently moved back home after finishing college, working at a local marketing firm while saving for her own place. I had always been fond of Sophia in a distant, uncle-like way. She was a serious, thoughtful young woman who had grown from a shy, bookish teenager into a composed adult with a sharp mind and quiet confidence. She had been like family, attending our holiday gatherings, joining our summer barbecues. I'd helped her with college application essays years ago and occasionally offered career advice when she asked. But now, as I delved deeper into understanding Ryan's world, I began to see Sophia in a new light, not just as my best friend's daughter, but as someone who might, unwittingly, hold the key to my revenge. It was a thought that initially filled me with shame. To even consider using an innocent person in my plan for retribution seemed beneath me. Yet the more I learned about my wife and best friend's betrayal, the more my moral compass shifted. They had destroyed any claim to ethical treatment, and while I wasn't willing to hurt Sophia, I began to wonder if there might be a way to use her position in Ryan's life to make him suffer as I was suffering. The opportunity to explore this possibility came sooner than I expected. 2 weeks after discovering the affair, I received a text from Sophia asking if we could meet for coffee. This wasn't entirely unusual. She occasionally reached out for career advice, but the timing was noteworthy. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, far from where Elise or Ryan might randomly appear. Sophia sat at a corner table, her dark hair pulled back in a loose bun, dressed in the business casual attire of her new professional life. When she saw me, her smile seemed strained. "Thanks for meeting me, Daniel," she said as I sat across from her, coffee in hand. "Of course. Always happy to help. What's on your mind?" She hesitated, fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "This is kind of awkward, but I didn't know who else to talk to." My heart rate quickened. Did she know? Had she somehow discovered the affair? "I think something's wrong with my dad," she continued, her voice dropping lower. "He's been acting strange, coming home late, being secretive about his phone. Mom doesn't seem to notice, or maybe she's ignoring it, but..." She looked up at me, her eyes so similar to Ryan's, wide with concern. "I'm worried he might be having some kind of midlife crisis or something. He talks about making big changes, about how sometimes people outgrow their lives." The irony nearly made me laugh. Ryan's daughter was coming to me, the betrayed best friend, with suspicions about her father's fidelity. The universe had a perverse sense of humor. What makes you think it's serious? I asked, keeping my voice neutral while my mind raced with possibilities. I overheard him on the phone last night. He was talking about leaving, about starting over. He seemed excited, happy even, but in a way that scared me. She bit her lip. I know this puts you in an awkward position since you're his friend, but you're also the most level-headed person I know. I thought maybe you could talk to him. In that moment, looking at Sophia's worried face, something shifted inside me. The vague, half-formed idea of using her in my revenge solidified into something more defined. Not to hurt her, never that, but to position myself in her life in a way that would eventually devastate Ryan far more thoroughly than a simple confrontation about the affair ever could. I'll see what I can find out, I promised, reaching across the table to briefly touch her hand. But Sophia, whatever's going on with your dad, it's not your responsibility to fix it. Sometimes adults make choices that affect their families, and there's nothing their children can do to prevent it. She nodded slowly. I know. I can't imagine our family not being together. Mom and Dad have always been my rock, you know. The genuine pain in her voice cut through my growing numbness. Here was someone else who would be collateral damage in Ryan and Elise's selfish choices. Someone who, like me, had built her understanding of the world on relationships she believed were solid and true. Whatever happens, I said carefully, you'll always have people who care about you, Sophia. Family isn't just about blood or marriage. It's about who stands by you when it matters. As we parted ways, Sophia hugged me tightly, thanking me for listening. I watched her walk away, conflicted emotions warring within me. Using her pain to further my revenge seemed cruel. But what if, in the process, I could actually offer her the support and stability her father was preparing to rip away? What if, rather than using her, we could somehow help each other through the emotional wasteland Ryan and Elise were creating? These thoughts accompanied me home, where Elise was preparing dinner, humming to herself. The sight of her, beautiful, familiar, traitorous, sent fresh waves of anguish through me. How could she stand there chopping vegetables in our kitchen, acting the part of devoted wife while planning to leave me? Good day, she asked, smiling up at me as I entered. Interesting, I replied truthfully. Ran into Sophia for coffee. Her knife paused momentarily. Ryan's daughter? How is she? Concerned about her father, actually. Thinks he might be having some kind of midlife crisis. The color drained from Elise's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Oh? What ... What makes her think that? I shrugged, enjoying her discomfort with a viciousness that would have been foreign to me just weeks before. Something about him talking about making big changes, starting over. She's worried. Elise turned back to the cutting board, but not before I caught the flash of panic in her eyes. I'm sure it's nothing serious. Ryan's always been a bit dramatic. Probably, I agreed mildly. But it got me thinking about how quickly life can change. How people we think we know completely can surprise us. She glanced at me sharply, searching my face for any hint that I knew her secret. I maintained a neutral expression, the same mask I'd perfected over the past weeks. Change isn't always bad, she said finally, her voice soft. Sometimes it's necessary for growth. And sometimes, I countered, it's just selfishness dressed up as self-actualization. The tension between us stretched tight as a wire. For a moment, I thought she might confess then and there. Instead, she turned away to check the oven, effectively ending the conversation. That night, as Elise slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning with possibilities. My conversation with Sophia had opened an unexpected door. Ryan's daughter was vulnerable, seeking guidance, and unwittingly positioned at the center of the storm that was about to break over all our lives. If I played this carefully, I could build a genuine connection with her, one that would eventually serve my need for vengeance, while perhaps giving her the support she would desperately need once her father's betrayal came to light. The next morning, I texted Sophia, "Been thinking about our conversation. If you ever need to talk more, I'm here. Sometimes it helps to have someone outside the situation." Her response came quickly. "Thanks, Daniel. Might take you up on that. It's nice knowing someone is in my corner." In my corner. The phrase sent a pang through me. How long had it been since anyone had truly been in my corner? Elise, who I'd believed was my partner in everything, had been plotting her escape with my best friend for months. My other friends, mutual friends with Ryan, would inevitably be forced to choose sides when everything exploded. I was more alone than I'd been since before I met Elise, but perhaps in the ruins of my former life, There was an opportunity to build something new. Something that would not only satisfy my growing need for revenge, but might actually create a genuine connection in the process. Over the next few weeks, as Ryan and Elise's plans to leave their respective spouses accelerated, according to the messages I continued to monitor, my friendship with Sophia deepened. We met regularly for coffee, sometimes just to talk about her work or my investments, other times delving into her concerns about her family. I was careful never to criticize Ryan directly, positioning myself instead as a supportive friend, trying to understand what might be happening. This approach seemed to comfort Sophia, who increasingly turned to me when she noticed more evidence of her father's strange behavior. Late nights, hushed phone calls, unexplained absences. It's like he's living a double life. She confided one evening as we sat in a quiet corner of a local bookstore cafe. Mom either doesn't see it or doesn't want to talk about it. When I try to bring it up, she changes the subject. Sometimes people avoid difficult truths, I said, thinking of how I'd been doing exactly that by not confronting Elise directly. It's easier to pretend everything's fine. Sophia nodded, running a finger around the rim of her mug. I've always thought my parents had the perfect marriage. Now I'm wondering if I was just naive. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage, I told her, the words bitter on my tongue. Just different levels of compromise and deception. She looked up at me then, her expression thoughtful. That's pretty cynical. Don't you and Elise have a good relationship? The question struck me like a physical blow. Here was this young woman seeking reassurance that lasting love was possible, and I was on the verge of confirming her worst fears. For a moment, I considered lying, maintaining the facade that my marriage was solid even as it crumbled beneath me. But something in Sophia's direct gaze compelled honesty. I thought we did, I said quietly. Now I'm not so sure. Her eyes widened slightly. Are you and Elise having problems too? I hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. Let's just say I understand what you're going through better than you might think. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed my hand, her touch unexpectedly comforting. I'm sorry, Daniel. That's awful. That simple gesture of sympathy nearly undid me. For weeks, I'd been carrying the weight of my knowledge alone, maintaining a perfect mask of normalcy while screaming inside. To have someone, anyone, acknowledge my pain felt like the first clean breath after nearly drowning. Thank you. I managed, my voice rougher than intended. But enough about my problems. How are you handling everything? She shrugged, a small, sad movement, throwing myself into work mostly, trying not to think about what might be happening. Sometimes I feel like I should confront Dad directly, but then I'm afraid of what he might say. The truth can be painful, I said, but lingering in uncertainty has its own cost. Is that why you haven't confronted Elise about whatever's wrong? She asked, perceptive as always. I smiled wryly. Touché. I suppose I'm taking my own time to process things before making any moves. Strategic as always, she replied with a hint of admiration. That's what I've always liked about you, Daniel. You think before you act. Dad's more impulsive, follows his emotions into all kinds of messes. If she only knew how impulsive her father had been, risking his marriage, his relationship with his daughter, and our decades-long friendship for an affair with my wife. But I kept that thought to myself. As our evening concluded and I walked Sophia to her car, she surprised me with another hug. Thanks for being someone I can talk to about this stuff, she said. It means a lot. Standing there in the cool evening air, I was struck by the genuine warmth in her eyes. Sophia wasn't just a means to my revenge anymore. She was becoming a friend in her own right, someone I genuinely cared about. The realization was uncomfortable. It complicated the narrative I'd been constructing, the one where everyone connected to Ryan deserved to suffer as I was suffering. But as I drove home, a new idea began to take shape, one that wouldn't require me to hurt Sophia at all. In fact, it might offer both of us some measure of healing from the wounds Ryan and Elise were inflicting. What if, instead of using Sophia as a weapon against her father, I built something genuine with her, a relationship based on mutual respect and shared experience that would, by its very nature, be the ultimate revenge against Ryan? The thought was both intoxicating and terrifying. Sophia was 23, young, but a consenting adult. I was 45, older, but not inappropriately so. The true barrier wasn't age, but the fact that she was my best friend's daughter. Under normal circumstances, that line would be uncrossable. But Ryan had already demolished all normal boundaries by sleeping with my wife. Did I still owe him any loyalty? Any consideration at all? I pushed these thoughts aside as I arrived home, where Elise was waiting, a strange tension in her posture. Something had changed. I could feel it immediately. "We need to talk," she said, the 4 words that have preceded countless relationship endings throughout human history. So this was it. The moment they decided to bring me into their narrative, to cast me in the role of the discarded husband. A cold anger settled in my chest as I sat across from her at our kitchen table. "I'm listening," I said, my voice betraying none of the turmoil beneath. Elise took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly together. "I don't know how to say this, Daniel. I've been trying to find the right words for so long." I waited, refusing to help her through this confession. "I'm not happy," she finally continued. "I haven't been for a long time. And I think we should separate." No mention of Ryan, no admission of the affair. She was going to paint this as a simple falling out of love, a mutual growing apart. The cowardice of it was breathtaking. "Is there someone else?" I asked directly, watching her face. She flinched, guilt flashing across her features before she composed herself. "This isn't about anyone else. This is about us not working anymore." The lie hung between us like a physical presence. I could have confronted her then, thrown the evidence of her affair in her face, forced her to admit her betrayal, but something held me back. Some instinct whispered that maintaining my facade of ignorance might serve me better in the long run. "I see," I said slowly. "And you're sure this is what you want? After 17 years? Tears welled in her eyes, and for a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I never wanted to hurt you, but I need to be true to myself." True to herself. The platitude nearly made me laugh. What about being true to her vows? To our shared history? To the basic decency of not sleeping with my best friend? "Where will you go?" I asked, maintaining my calm exterior while plotting furiously internally. "I have a place lined up," she said, not meeting my eyes. "I can move this weekend." A place lined up. With Ryan, no doubt, though she wasn't admitting that yet. The timeline was accelerating. According to the messages I'd intercepted, Ryan was planning to tell Melanie about the affair on Saturday. They would both leave their marriages within days of each other, then reunite as a public couple after a respectful period. As if there was anything respectful about their actions. "I see," I repeated, then added, "Whatever makes you happy, Elise." She looked up, clearly surprised by my mild reaction. You're not angry?" I shrugged, the gesture requiring immense control to appear casual. "What good would anger do? You've clearly made up your mind." Relief flooded her features, and I felt a stab of satisfaction knowing this wasn't going according to her script. She'd expected tears, recriminations, perhaps begging. My calm acceptance left her off balance. "Thank you for understanding," she said softly. "You deserve someone who loves you completely, Daniel." The irony of her saying this while betraying me was almost too much to bear. I stood, needing to end this conversation before my mask slipped. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight," I said. "Give you space to pack." As I walked away, she called after me, "Daniel, are we okay?" I turned, allowing just a hint of the coldness I felt to show in my eyes. "No, Elise, we're not okay, but we will both survive this." That night, alone in the guest bedroom that would soon become my primary sleeping space, I pulled out my phone and saw a text from Sophia. Dad just got a call that made him leave the house in a hurry. "Mom looks worried." I hate this uncertainty. "Free for lunch tomorrow?" I texted back, "Absolutely. Noon at Riverside Cafe?" Her response was immediate. "Perfect. Could use a friendly face right now." A friendly face. Is that all I was to her? All I should be? The question circled in my mind as I stared at the ceiling, listening to Elise moving around in what had been our bedroom, packing up her life, preparing to leave me for my best friend. My phone buzzed again with another message from Sophia. "Thank you for being there for me through all this. Don't know what I'd do without you." In that moment, as my marriage officially ended and my best friend prepared to reveal his betrayal, the path forward became startlingly clear. Sophia and I were both victims of the same betrayal, both abandoned by people we trusted, both navigating a new reality we hadn't chosen. Perhaps in finding our way through this shared devastation, we could build something neither Ryan nor Elise anticipated. Something that would give us both a second chance at happiness, while serving as the perfect revenge against those who had discarded us so carelessly. The idea no longer seemed outrageous but inevitable, a natural consequence of their actions. They had rewritten the rules of loyalty and family. Why shouldn't I follow their example? I slept more soundly that night than I had in weeks, a plan taking shape in my dreams, concrete steps forming in my subconscious. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do and how long it would take to execute my revenge properly. The next day, as Elise methodically packed her belongings, I met Sophia for lunch. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, testament to a sleepless night. Dad didn't come home until after midnight, she confided as we settled at our table. Mom was waiting up. I heard them arguing, but couldn't make out what they were saying. It's happening at my house too, I admitted. Elise told me last night she wants a separation. Sophia's eyes widened. Daniel, I'm so sorry. What did she say? The usual cliches. Not happy, needs to find herself. We've grown apart. Nothing about the real reason, of course. You think there's someone else? She asked hesitantly. I nodded, surprising myself with my willingness to be vulnerable with her. I know there is. I've known for weeks. Why haven't you confronted her? Strategic thinking, remember? I gave her a sad smile. Sometimes it's better to let people reveal themselves completely before you show your hand. Sophia considered this, absently stirring her iced tea. You think that's what's happening with my dad too? An affair? It seems likely given the patterns you've described. She closed her eyes briefly, pain flashing across her features. Poor mom. She doesn't deserve this. 25 years of marriage and he's just… What? Throwing it away for someone new? If only she knew it wasn't someone new but someone very familiar. My wife. But that revelation would come in time, and not from me. People rationalize their worst behaviors, I said. They tell themselves stories that make them the heroes of their own narratives, even when they're causing immense pain to others. How are you staying so calm about Elise? Sophia asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. Practice, I admitted. Weeks of knowing something was wrong, suspecting the truth, preparing myself mentally. And ... I hesitated, then decided to be honest. Having someone like you to talk to has helped more than you know. A slight blush colored her cheeks. I've been leaning on you more than the other way around. Maybe we're holding each other up, I suggested, finding strength where we can in a situation neither of us created. Our eyes met across the table, and something shifted between us. An acknowledgement of our unusual connection, born from shared pain, but evolving into something neither of us had anticipated. The rest of lunch passed in easier conversation, deliberately turning to lighter topics. Her work projects, a book she was reading, a movie I'd recently seen. It felt good to talk about normal things, to laugh occasionally, to exist in a space untainted by betrayal for a few hours. As we prepared to leave, Sophia hesitated, then asked, What will you do now? With Elise moving out? Focus on rebuilding, I said. My life looks nothing like I thought it would a month ago. I need to figure out what the new version of Daniel Harmon looks like. I might be facing the same challenge soon, she said quietly. If Dad is really having an affair, if he really leaves, everything changes. On impulse, I reached for her hand. Whatever happens, Sophia, you're not alone in this. We can figure it out together. She squeezed my hand, her smile grateful and warm. Together sounds a lot better than alone. As we walked to our cars, a dangerous thought occurred to me. What if together became more literal than either of us currently meant? What if the comfort and understanding we were finding in each other evolved naturally into something deeper? Ryan would be devastated to see his daughter with his former best friend, the man whose wife he'd stolen. It would be a symmetry so perfect it almost seemed fated. I imagined his face upon discovering that while he had taken my wife, I had won his daughter's heart. Not through manipulation or revenge, but through genuine connection born in the aftermath of his betrayal. The poetic justice of it was undeniable. But as I watched Sophia drive away, waving goodbye with a smile that lightened my darkened heart, I wondered if I was capable of such calculated seduction. Could I deliberately court this young woman, knowing that my initial motivation was vengeance against her father? The answer came to me with surprising clarity. I wouldn't need to fake anything. My growing feelings for Sophia were real, unexpected and complicated, but genuine. She was intelligent, compassionate, and stronger than she knew. Our age difference and the circumstances of our connection made a relationship unconventional, perhaps even inappropriate in some eyes. But conventional boundaries had already been shattered by Ryan and Elise's affair. New rules applied now, rules they had created through their betrayal. That weekend, the facade finally collapsed completely. Ryan told Melanie about the affair on Saturday morning, leading to a confrontation so explosive that neighbors reported hearing the shouting from the street. By Saturday afternoon, he had moved out, into a hotel, not directly in with Elise, maintaining at least that thin veneer of propriety. Sophia called me distraught. It's true, she sobbed over the phone. Dad's been having an affair. He's left Mom. Everything's falling apart. Where are you? I asked immediately. At home with Mom. She's not good, Daniel. I've never seen her like this. Do you need me to come over? I offered, though the thought of facing Melanie, who didn't yet know that her husband's affair partner was my wife, was complicated. No, my aunt is on her way. I just needed to hear a friendly voice. She paused, then asked in a smaller voice, Did you know? About Dad's affair, I mean? The question I'd been dreading. I couldn't lie to her. Not if I wanted to build something real between us. But the complete truth would be too devastating right now. I suspected something, I acknowledged carefully. But I didn't know any details. Did he tell you who it is? The woman he's been seeing? My heart pounded. No, he didn't confide in me about this. Why? He wouldn't tell Mom either. Just said it was someone he's in love with. Someone he's been seeing for months. Her voice hardened. I hate her, whoever she is. She destroyed our family. I closed my eyes, knowing the moment Sophia discovered that she was my wife would be another devastating blow. But that revelation needed to come from Ryan or Elise, not from me. Your father made his choices, Sophia. He's the one who betrayed your mother's trust. I know that logically, she admitted. But it's easier to hate some faceless homewrecker than to hate my own dad. The irony was almost too much to bear. I changed the subject, asking about Melanie, offering what support I could from a distance. When we finally hung up, I sat in my empty house. Elise had moved the last of her things out that morning and contemplated the next phase of my plan. I didn't have to wait long for the other shoe to drop. Sunday evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Ryan standing on my porch, his expression a mixture of defiance and shame. We need to talk, he said, echoing Elise's words from days before. I stepped aside to let him in, maintaining the pretense that I didn't already know everything, that I hadn't been monitoring their messages, tracking their betrayal in real time for weeks. He paced my living room, running his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since college. Finally, he turned to face me. There's no easy way to say this, he began, but you deserve to hear it from me directly. I waited, face carefully neutral. Elise and we've been seeing each other for a while now. He held my gaze, his eyes pleading for understanding even as he delivered this devastation. It wasn't planned. It just happened. And it's real, Daniel. What we feel for each other is real. Real, I repeated, the word tasting like ash. Like our friendship was real. Like my marriage was real. He flinched. I know how this looks. I know it's unforgivable. Then why are you here? I asked coldly. Not for forgiveness, surely. For honesty, he countered. You deserve to hear it from me, not through gossip or through Sophia, I interjected, watching his expression shift. Yes, she called me yesterday, devastated about her father having an affair, but unaware yet that it's with my wife. When were you planning to tell her that part, Ryan? He paled. You've been talking to Sophia about this? She came to me weeks ago, concerned about your strange behavior. Imagine her shock when she discovered her intuition was correct. Her father was betraying her mother, betraying their entire family. Ryan's face hardened. My relationship with my daughter is none of your business. Isn't it? I stepped closer. You made your affair with my wife my business. You've entangled all our lives now, Ryan. Actions have consequences. What's that supposed to mean? His voice took on an edge of concern. I smiled thinly. Nothing ominous, just an observation. Sophia is an adult who can choose who she confides in, who she trusts. Right now, that person happens to be me. Perhaps because, unlike her father, I haven't lied to her. Stay away from my daughter, he said, a flush rising in his cheeks. This is between you, me, and Elise. No, I corrected him. You made this about everyone when you destroyed 2 marriages. Melanie, Sophia, they're collateral damage in your pursuit of happiness. Don't pretend to care about protecting them now. He stared at me, confusion and the first hints of fear crossing his features. You've changed, Daniel. This isn't like you. Betrayal changes people. I replied simply, you should leave now. Go back to Elise. Enjoy the life you've stolen. After he left, I sat alone in my living room, replaying our conversation. The look on Ryan's face when I mentioned Sophia had confirmed everything I needed to know. He was already worried about her reaction to his affair. The idea that she was confiding in me, forming a connection with me, clearly unsettled him deeply. Good. This was just the beginning. The following weeks were a carefully orchestrated dance. I maintained regular contact with Sophia, offering support as she processed her father's betrayal. When the final revelation came, that Ryan's affair partner was my wife, her shock and anger provided the perfect opportunity to deepen our connection. How could they do this to us? She cried during an evening walk through the park near my house. It's so incestuous, so twisted. They weren't thinking about us, I replied gently, only about themselves. Dad keeps trying to explain, to justify it somehow. Says he and Elise have this once-in-a-lifetime connection, as if that makes it okay to blow up two families. I nodded, understanding her anger intimately. They've rewritten the narrative to cast themselves as star-crossed lovers instead of what they actually are, people who betrayed their vows and responsibilities. She looked at me, eyes shining with unshed tears in the park's dim lighting. How are you so philosophical about this? I'm still so angry I can barely breathe sometimes. I've had longer to process it, I admitted. And I've had you. The words slipped out before I could consider them, more honest than I'd intended. Sophia stopped walking, turning to face me fully. What do you mean? It was a pivotal moment, one that could either advance my plans or derail them completely. I chose honesty, or at least a version of it. Having someone who understands exactly what this betrayal feels like, it's been invaluable to me, Sophia. You've helped me through this more than you know. I've felt the same way, she said softly. Everyone else walks on eggshells around me, or they take sides. Dad's friends defending him, Mom's sisters calling him every name in the book. You're the only one who just lets me feel what I'm feeling without judgment. Because I feel it too, I said, allowing our eyes to lock meaningfully. Something electric passed between us in that moment. Recognition, connection, possibility. For a heartbeat, I thought she might step closer, that we might cross a line there in the darkness of the park. Instead, she glanced away, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. We should probably head back. It's getting late. Of course, I agreed, respecting the boundaries she'd implicitly drawn. This wasn't the time to push. My revenge would require patience, careful cultivation of genuine feelings. Rushing would only create suspicion. As I walked her to her car, she hesitated before getting in. Daniel, is it strange that talking to you is the only thing that makes me feel better these days? Not strange, I assured her. We're sharing an unusual experience. It creates a unique bond. She smiled, a small, uncertain thing. I'm glad we have each other then. Me too, I replied, and meant it far more deeply than she could know. Over the next month, as spring fully yielded to summer, my relationship with Sophia evolved naturally. We texted daily, met several times a week, and gradually our conversations expanded beyond our shared trauma to encompass all aspects of our lives. I learned about her ambitions in marketing, her love of obscure indie films, her habit of reading the last page of a book first. She discovered my passion for architectural history, my terrible cooking skills, my secret fondness for reality TV competitions. Meanwhile, Ryan and Elise settled into their new life together, moving into an apartment downtown. They reached out periodically, awkward attempts at maintaining connections that neither Sophia nor I were interested in pursuing. Ryan seemed increasingly concerned about the time his daughter spent with me, calling her more frequently, suggesting father-daughter dinners that she usually declined. He's trying to buy my forgiveness with fancy restaurants, she told me over coffee one morning, as if an expensive meal can make up for what he did to Mom. How is Melanie doing? I asked. I'd kept my distance from Ryan's ex-wife, unsure how she would react to my growing closeness with her daughter. Better, actually. She started dating again. Nothing serious, but she's getting out there. Says she refuses to let Dad's choices define the rest of her life. She's a strong woman, I observed. You take after her that way. Sophia smiled, pleased by the comparison. I'm trying to be, which is why I've made a decision. Oh, I'm moving out of Mom's place. I found an apartment. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I need to establish my own space, separate from all the family drama. That's a big step, I said, genuinely proud of her independence. When do you move? Next weekend. And ... She hesitated, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. I was hoping you might help me. With the moving part, I mean, of course. I agreed immediately. I'm at your disposal. Thanks. She fidgeted with her napkin. There's something else I wanted to ask you. My heart rate picked up slightly. Anything. Would you come to dinner at my new place next Friday? After everything's set up. As a thank you for all your help these past months. The invitation hung between us, weighted with unspoken possibilities. This wouldn't be a casual coffee or a walk in the park. This would be Sophia cooking for me in her new home, an intimate setting away from prying eyes or family interference. I'd be honored, I replied, watching her face brighten with relief. Good, great. Around 7? Perfect. As I drove home after our coffee, I considered how far we'd come. My initial plan to use Sophia as a weapon against Ryan had evolved into something far more complex. Yes, a relationship with her would still serve as the ultimate revenge against my former best friend. But it would also be genuine, built on real connection and mutual respect. The line between revenge and redemption had blurred, or perhaps they were never as separate as I'd believed. Perhaps the best revenge wasn't hurting those who hurt you, but finding happiness despite them. Happiness they never anticipated in forms they never expected. The moving day went smoothly. With my help and a few of her friends from work, Sophia was settled into her new apartment by early afternoon. It was a modest one-bedroom in a renovated building, with high ceilings, original hardwood floors, and large windows that filled the space with light. What do you think? She asked as her friends departed, leaving us alone with the boxes still to be unpacked. It suits you, I said honestly. Independent but warm, sophisticated but not pretentious. She laughed. You make it sound like you're describing me instead of the apartment. Maybe I am, I admitted, allowing my gaze to linger on her face longer than strictly appropriate. She didn't look away, and for a moment, the air between us seemed charged with possibility. Then her phone rang, her father calling, breaking the spell. I should take this, she said, looking genuinely regretful. He's been calling all day. Of course. I should head out anyway. Let you settle in. I moved toward the door. See you tomorrow night? Definitely. 7 o'clock. Don't forget. I wouldn't dream of it. That night, alone in my house, which still felt emptier than I'd expected nearly 2 months after Elise's departure, I contemplated the crossroads ahead. Tomorrow night would likely determine the direction of my relationship with Sophia. If I was reading the signals correctly, she was open to exploring a deeper connection. The question was whether I should encourage it. My motivation had shifted from pure revenge to something more complex. A genuine desire for her company, for the warmth and understanding she brought into my life. Yet the fact remained that a relationship between us would devastate Ryan in ways nothing else could. It would be both authentic and the perfect retribution. Was I capable of pursuing both simultaneously? Of loving Sophia genuinely while also savoring the vengeance her love would provide? The answer came to me as I drifted toward sleep. Yes. Because Ryan and Elise had taught me that love and betrayal could exist simultaneously. That the human heart was complex enough to hold genuine affection alongside calculated deception. If they could love each other while betraying their spouses, I could love Sophia while using that love to punish her father. The next evening, I arrived at Sophia's apartment precisely at 7, bearing a bottle of wine and a small houseplant, practical gifts for a new home. She greeted me with a bright smile, dressed in a simple blue dress I hadn't seen before, her hair loose around her shoulders. You look beautiful, I said, the compliment slipping out naturally. She blushed slightly. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. Her apartment had been transformed since the previous day. Boxes were unpacked, furniture arranged, and candles flickered on the small dining table set for 2. The effect was undeniably romantic, intentionally so, if I was reading the situation correctly. Something smells amazing, I commented as she took the wine to the kitchen. Don't get too excited. It's just pasta with my grandmother's sauce recipe, about the limit of my cooking skills. Still leagues beyond what I can manage, I assured her, following her into the small kitchen where pots simmered on the stove. We fell into easy conversation as she finished preparing the meal, the familiar rhythm of our interactions enhanced by the intimate setting. Over dinner, with the wine loosening our usual restraint, our discussion turned more personal. Can I ask you something? Sophia said as we finished the main course. Something I've been wondering about but wasn't sure how to bring up. Of course, I replied, curious and slightly wary. Are you dating anyone? Since Elise, I mean. The directness of the question surprised me. No, I answered truthfully. I haven't been interested in dating. Because you're still hurting over Elise. I considered this carefully. Not exactly. The pain has evolved. It's less about losing her specifically and more about processing the betrayal. Learning to trust again. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I get that. I've had a couple guys ask me out recently, but I just can't imagine letting anyone new into my life right now. With one exception. My pulse quickened. Oh, you, She held my gaze steadily, though I could see the nerves beneath her composed exterior. You're already in my life. Already know all the messy details. I don't have to explain or pretend with you. The moment stretched between us, fraught with possibility. This was it. The opportunity I'd been carefully cultivating for months. Yet faced with her vulnerability, her genuine emotion, I found myself hesitating. Sophia, I began carefully. You know how much I value our connection. But there are complications. The age difference. Your father, I don't care about any of that. She interrupted, leaning forward. The age difference doesn't bother me. And as for my father, he gave up any right to approve or disapprove of my choices when he blew up our family for his own selfish desires. Put that way, it was hard to argue. Still, I maintained my careful approach. I care about you too much to rush into something you might regret. I'm 23, Daniel, not 17. I know my own mind. She reached across the table to take my hand. And I know what I want. Her touch sent electricity up my arm, a visceral reminder of how long it had been since I'd experienced intimate human contact. The desire I'd been carefully suppressing for weeks surged forward, nearly overwhelming my strategic caution. What exactly are you saying? I asked, my voice lower than intended. I'm saying that what started as friendship has become something more for me. Her thumb traced patterns on my palm. And I hope, you feel it too. In that moment, looking into her earnest eyes, the line between revenge and genuine desire blurred completely. Yes, a relationship with Sophia would be the perfect retribution against Ryan, but it would also be real, based on genuine connection, mutual understanding, and growing affection. I do feel it, I admitted, turning my hand to entwine our fingers. But I don't want to take advantage of your vulnerability. She smiled, a flash of her mother's determination crossing her features. Daniel, if anyone's taking advantage, it might be me. The experienced young woman pursuing the vulnerable, recently divorced older man. The reversal made me laugh, breaking the tension. Is that what's happening here? Maybe. She teased, standing and tugging me to my feet. Why don't we find out? She led me to the small living room, where we sat close together on her new couch. In the soft lamplight, with the city sounds muffled beyond her windows, the world seemed to contract to just the two of us. When she leaned forward to kiss me, I hesitated only briefly before meeting her halfway. The kiss was tentative at first, exploratory, but quickly deepened into something more urgent. Her hand slid up my chest to my shoulders as mine found her waist, drawing her closer. I should have been thinking about Ryan in that moment, imagining his horror if he could see his daughter in my arms. That had been the plan after all, the ultimate revenge. But as Sophia pressed closer, as the kiss intensified, I found I wasn't thinking about Ryan at all. I was simply present, immersed in the connection between us, in the way her body fit against mine, in the soft sound she made when I traced her lower lip with my tongue. Later, much later, as we lay tangled together in her new bed, the sheets cool against overheated skin, reality began to reassert itself. What had started as a calculated revenge plot had evolved into something far more complex and potentially dangerous. I was falling for Sophia genuinely, deeply. And while that didn't negate the satisfaction I would feel when Ryan discovered our relationship, it did complicate my narrative considerably. What are you thinking? She murmured, her head resting on my chest, fingers tracing patterns on my skin. I stroked her hair, weighing honesty against self-preservation. That this is both simpler and more complicated than I expected. She propped herself up on one elbow to look at me. Meaning? Simpler because being with you feels natural. More right than I could have anticipated. I traced the curve of her cheek. More complicated because of everything surrounding us. Your father, my ex-wife, the circumstances that brought us together. Do you regret it? She asked, vulnerability flickering across her face. Not for a second, I assured her, pulling her down for another kiss. But we should talk about how to handle the external factors. Your father specifically. She sighed, settling back against me. I'm not looking forward to that conversation. He'll be furious. Yes, I agreed, he will. Does that bother you? The question hung between us, weighted with implications. Did it bother me that Ryan would be devastated by our relationship? Not in the slightest. In fact, his pain was a significant part of my original motivation. But I couldn't tell Sophia that. Couldn't reveal how deeply revenge had factored into my initial interest in her. What bothers me is the possibility of him hurting you, I said instead. His reaction could be extreme. I can handle my father, she said with quiet confidence. The question is whether we want to be open about this now or keep it private for a while. I considered the options. Making our relationship public immediately would deliver the maximum impact to Ryan, a sudden, devastating blow he wouldn't see coming. But keeping it private longer would allow our connection to deepen, becoming more resistant to the inevitable pressure Ryan would exert on Sophia to end things. "What do you want?" I asked her. "I think I want some time for just us," she said after a moment, "to figure out what this is without everyone's opinions and judgments clouding things." "Then that's what we'll do," I agreed, kissing her forehead. "This stays between us for now." As she drifted to sleep in my arms, I stared at the ceiling, contemplating the path ahead. The revenge I had so carefully planned was taking shape, but not exactly as I'd envisioned. I was genuinely falling for Sophia, her intelligence, her resilience, her compassionate heart. What had begun as a means to punish Ryan was becoming an end in itself, a relationship I valued independently of its retributive potential. The irony wasn't lost on me. In using Sophia to exact my revenge, I'd found something I hadn't realized I was seeking: connection, understanding, the possibility of a future beyond betrayal. The very thing Ryan and Elise had claimed justified their affair, I was now discovering with Sophia. But unlike them, I wouldn't destroy existing commitments to pursue it. The damage had already been done. Sophia and I were building something new from the ruins they'd left behind. There was a certain poetic justice to that, a redemptive quality to our connection that transcended simple revenge. As I finally succumbed to sleep, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity: I would have both. The genuine relationship with Sophia that was blossoming naturally between us, and the exquisite revenge against Ryan that our love would inevitably deliver. Unlike my former best friend, I wouldn't have to choose between love and loyalty. I would transform betrayal into something beautiful, something lasting. And when Ryan finally discovered the truth about his daughter and me, his pain would be all the sweeter because what Sophia and I shared was real. The following weeks unfolded in a pattern of careful secrecy and growing intimacy. Sophia and I spent most evenings together at her apartment or occasionally at my house, always cautious about public appearances that might reach Ryan's ears. We learned each other's rhythms, preferences, vulnerabilities. She helped me redecorate my living room, erasing the last traces of Elise's taste. I helped her navigate a challenging work project, lending my financial expertise to her marketing campaign. We were building a life together, piece by piece. A life founded on shared experience and growing affection, rather than betrayal and deception. The contrast with Ryan and Elise's relationship wasn't lost on either of us. It's strange. Sophia mused one evening as we cooked dinner together in my kitchen. "Dad keeps trying to convince me that what he and Elise have is this grand passion that justifies everything they did. But all I see is two selfish people who put their desires above everyone else's well-being." I smiled, stirring the sauce she'd taught me to make. "While what we have started with compassion," she finished, "with helping each other through the worst times, it's a much better foundation." She didn't know, of course, how my initial interest had been calculated, how revenge had motivated my early attention to her pain. But she wasn't wrong about how things had evolved. What we'd built together was genuine, rooted in mutual support during crisis. "We should tell him soon," she continued, setting plates on the counter. "It's been almost 2 months since we started seeing each other. I don't want him hearing it from someone else." I nodded, though the prospect filled me with complex emotions. The moment Ryan learned about us would be the culmination of my revenge, the perfect retribution for his betrayal. Yet I found myself concerned about how the revelation might affect Sophia. The satisfaction I would feel needed to be balanced against potential harm to her. "Are you ready for his reaction?" I asked carefully. "It won't be pleasant," she shrugged, a gesture reminiscent of her father that sent an uncomfortable pang through me. "I'm not doing this to hurt him, Daniel. I'm doing it because I love you." The declaration, our first, hung in the air between us. My heart raced as I processed her words. She loved me, not the calculating avenger I'd been when this began, but the man I'd become with her. The man who had found healing and hope in her arms. "I love you too," I replied, surprised by how true the words felt. "Which is why I want to protect you from the fallout." She smiled, stepping into my arms. "We'll weather it together. Besides, it's about time Dad learned that my life decisions aren't subject to his approval." I held her close, inhaling the scent of her shampoo, feeling the soft curves of her body against mine. In that moment, revenge seemed secondary to the miracle of finding love again after such betrayal. Ryan's pain would still satisfy the part of me that craved justice, but Sophia's happiness, our happiness together, had become the primary goal. How do you want to tell him? I asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. I was thinking dinner, neutral territory, a public place to discourage complete meltdowns. I chuckled at her practical approach. Sounds reasonable. When? This weekend? Saturday night? I'll tell him I want to introduce him to someone I'm seeing. He'll probably assume it's someone my age from work. The plan was set. In 3 days, Ryan would learn that his former best friend was now his daughter's lover. The culmination of months of careful planning, the perfect symmetrical response to his betrayal. An eye for an eye, a spouse for a spouse, though in this case, a daughter freely given rather than stolen. As Saturday approached, I found myself increasingly tense. Not from fear of confrontation. I looked forward to seeing Ryan's face when he realized what had happened. But from concern for Sophia, she remained confident about her decision, even excited to stop hiding our relationship. But I worried about the strain this would place on her relationship with her father, already damaged by his affair. Are you sure about this? I asked Friday night as we lay in her bed, her head on my chest. I don't want to come between you and your father permanently. She traced patterns on my skin, thoughtful. He came between himself and me when he destroyed our family for Elise. This isn't about punishing him, Daniel. It's about living my life authentically. I love you. I'm not hiding that to spare his feelings. Her words warmed me, even as a twinge of guilt surfaced. For her, this wasn't about revenge. She had no idea that for me, at least initially, it had been precisely that. Would she still look at me with such trust if she knew how calculated my early interest had been? I pushed the thought away. What mattered was what we had become to each other, not how it began. And what we had become was real. A partnership built on mutual respect, shared experience, and genuine affection. Whatever happens tomorrow, I said, tilting her face up to mine, know that I love you, not to spite anyone, but for exactly who you are. Her smile was radiant in the dim light. I know that, Daniel. It's why I'm not afraid of tomorrow. Saturday evening arrived with the weight of inevitability. We'd chosen an upscale restaurant downtown, elegant enough to mark the occasion as significant, public enough to ensure Ryan's reaction would be contained. Sophia wore a simple black dress that highlighted her slender frame, her hair swept up to reveal the graceful line of her neck. I opted for a charcoal suit and blue tie, wanting to present myself as the successful, composed counterpoint to whatever narrative Ryan had constructed about me post-betrayal. We arrived early, securing a corner table that offered some privacy while remaining visible from the entrance. Sophia's hand trembled slightly in mine as we waited. Nervous? I asked gently. A little, she admitted. Not about us, just about the scene he might make. We can leave at any time, I assured her. You set the pace. She squeezed my hand gratefully, then straightened as her gaze fixed on the restaurant entrance. He's here. I turned to see Ryan scanning the restaurant, dressed in a light gray suit that made him look older than I remembered. When he spotted Sophia, a smile transformed his face. The proud father about to meet his daughter's new boyfriend. The smile froze, then crumbled as his eyes shifted to me. Even from across the room, I could see the blood drain from his face, confusion and disbelief warring in his expression. Showtime, I murmured, standing with Sophia to greet him. Ryan approached our table with measured steps, his eyes never leaving mine. The raw betrayal in his gaze was exactly what I'd anticipated, exactly what I'd planned for all these months. Yet experiencing it directly was more intense than I'd expected. A visceral reminder of how I'd felt discovering his affair with Elise. What the hell is this? He demanded without preamble, his voice low but vibrating with anger. Sophia stepped slightly forward, her chin raised in a gesture of defiance I'd come to recognize. Dad, I wanted you to meet the man I've been seeing. Though obviously you already know Daniel. Is this some kind of sick joke? Ryan looked between us as if waiting for the punchline. No joke, I replied calmly. Sophia and I have been seeing each other for a couple of months now. We wanted to tell you properly in person. His laugh was harsh, disbelieving. A couple of months? She came to you for support about her family falling apart. And you what? Seduced her to get back at me? Sophia stiffened beside me. Dad, stop it. I'm not some pawn in whatever drama you think is happening. I'm an adult woman who made her own choice. You have no idea what's happening here, Sophia. Ryan said, his eyes still locked on mine. This isn't about you. This is about him getting revenge on me for Elise. The truth in his accusation hit uncomfortably close to home, but I maintained my composed exterior. This is about Sophia and me building something genuine together. Something that started, yes, because of what you and Elise did, but has become much more than that. Bullshit, Ryan spat. You're using my daughter to hurt me. This is sick, Daniel. Even for someone whose wife left him. Sophia stepped forward, placing herself between us. Stop it. Both of you. Dad, I didn't ask you here to attack Daniel. I asked you here because I wanted to be honest about my relationship. If you can't respect that, then we can end this dinner now. Ryan finally looked directly at his daughter, his expression softening slightly. Sophia, honey, you don't understand what you've gotten yourself into. He's nearly twice your age. He was my best friend. This isn't normal. Normal? She laughed bitterly. Like you leaving mom for your best friend's wife was normal? You don't get to define normal for me anymore, Dad. The restaurant had grown quieter, nearby diners failing to disguise their interest in our drama. A server hovered uncertainly nearby, clearly debating whether to approach. Why don't we sit down? I suggested, gesturing to the table. Continue this conversation more privately. For a moment, I thought Ryan might refuse, might storm out or escalate the confrontation. Instead, he pulled out a chair and sat heavily, looking suddenly older than his years. How long has this been going on? He asked as Sophia and I took our seats. We became friends after you left Mom, Sophia explained, her voice steadier now. We were both going through similar betrayals. It evolved naturally from there. Ryan's eyes narrowed. After I left Melanie, or before? After, I confirmed, meeting his suspicious gaze directly. Though Sophia had come to me earlier with concerns about your behavior, she noticed the signs of your affair before anyone told her about it. He flinched at that, guilt briefly crossing his features before hardening into resentment. So you comforted my worried daughter, gained her trust, then seduced her once I was out of the picture. How convenient. That's not how it happened. Sophia protested, but Ryan cut her off. Isn't it? Daniel has always been calculating, always played the long game. He leaned forward, addressing me directly. You saw an opportunity for the perfect revenge and took it, didn't you? My daughter for your wife. An eye for an eye. The accuracy of his assessment was unsettling. Had I been so transparent? Or did he simply know me well enough, even after his betrayal, to recognize my methods? What Sophia and I have built together has nothing to do with you, I said firmly. Yes, we met because of your actions. Yes, we bonded initially over shared pain. But what developed between us is genuine and independent of our connections to you. Is it? Ryan challenged. Can you honestly say that when you first started spending time with my daughter, revenge wasn't on your mind? Sophia turned to me, a question forming in her eyes. This was the dangerous moment, the point where my carefully constructed narrative might unravel. If I admitted that revenge had initially motivated me, would she see our entire relationship as a lie? If I denied it completely, would she sense the deception? I chose a careful middle ground. When Sophia first came to me, I was still processing my own anger and hurt. I won't pretend those feelings weren't present, but what happened between us developed naturally, based on genuine connection and mutual respect. Not a lie exactly, but not the complete truth either. Revenge had been far more calculated, far more central to my initial interest than I was admitting. But the evolution into genuine love had been real, unexpected, but undeniable. Ryan scoffed. You expect me to believe that? That this isn't about getting back at me? I don't really care what you believe, I replied coolly. Sophia knows the truth of our relationship. Her opinion is the only one that matters to me. Sophia is young and naive, Ryan snapped. She doesn't see how she's being manipulated. That was a mistake. Sophia's eyes flashed with anger. I'm 23 years old, Dad. A college graduate with a career. Stop treating me like a child who can't make her own decisions. This particular decision looks an awful lot like rebellion against your father, Ryan countered. Of all the men in the world, you choose my former best friend, the ex-husband of the woman I'm with? You don't see the pattern there? Maybe there is a pattern, Sophia acknowledged, surprising both of us. Maybe I was drawn to Daniel partly because of his connection to you, to our family's history. But that doesn't make what we feel for each other any less real. Her emotional intelligence, her willingness to acknowledge complexity, made me love her even more in that moment. She wasn't running from difficult truths, but facing them with the same courage she'd shown throughout the aftermath of her parents' divorce. Ryan looked between us, his expression shifting from anger to something more resigned. This won't last, you know. Once the novelty wears off, once the revenge aspect loses its thrill, what will you have in common? He's older than me, Sophia. Old enough to be your father, yet young enough to build a life with someone who appreciates me for exactly who I am I interjected. Something you and Elise should understand, given the justifications you've offered for your own relationship. That struck home. Ryan sat back, momentarily silenced by the parallels I'd drawn. He couldn't condemn our age difference or unusual connection without undermining his own narrative about his relationship with Elise. I love him, Dad, Sophia said into the silence, reaching for my hand across the table. I'm not asking for your blessing. I'm simply telling you how things are. Ryan studied our clasped hands, something like defeat crossing his features. Does your mother know? Not yet, Sophia admitted. I wanted to tell you first. I'm having dinner with her tomorrow. He nodded slowly. Melanie will have a field day with this. Her daughter and her ex-husband's former best friend. The perfect symmetry. The bitterness in his voice confirmed what I'd known all along. That this relationship, this connection with Sophia, was indeed the perfect revenge. Ryan understood exactly what had happened, even if he didn't know how deliberately it had begun. I'm sorry you see it that way. I said, not sorry at all. But Sophia and I are committed to exploring what we have together, regardless of how it fits into the narrative of your choices. Ryan stood abruptly. I think I've heard enough. Sophia, we'll talk about this later, privately. There's nothing to discuss, she replied firmly. My relationship with Daniel isn't up for debate or negotiation. Her father looked at her with a mixture of frustration and sadness. You have no idea what you're doing, no idea what game he's playing. The only person who played games with our family was you, she countered. Daniel has been nothing but honest with me from the beginning. The irony of her defense, given my initial motivations, wasn't lost on me. But I had been honest with her about my feelings as they developed, about the love that had grown between us, unexpected and redemptive. Ryan turned to me, his expression hardening. This isn't over, Daniel. Not by a long shot. Actually, it is, I replied calmly. You made your choice. Elise made hers. Now Sophia and I have made ours. The symmetry may be uncomfortable for you, but it's rather perfect from where I'm standing. He stared at me for a long moment, recognition dawning in his eyes. The full understanding of what I'd accomplished. Not just revenge, but a kind of poetic justice. A balancing of scales that left him unable to protest without highlighting his own transgressions. Without another word, he turned and walked away, his shoulders rigid with anger and defeat. As the restaurant door closed behind him, Sophia released a shaky breath. Well, that went about as expected. I squeezed her hand. You were incredible. Strong, clear, composed. I don't feel composed, she admitted. I feel like I might throw up. Let's get out of here, I suggested, signaling for the check. Go somewhere quiet where we can process. In the car, Sophia was uncharacteristically silent, staring out the window as city lights streaked past. I gave her space, driving automatically toward her apartment, wondering what thoughts were circling in her mind. Had Ryan's accusations raised doubts? Had she caught the grain of truth in his assessment of my initial motivations? It wasn't until we were inside her apartment, the door closed behind us, that she finally spoke. Was my father right? She asked quietly, standing in the center of her living room, arms crossed protectively over her chest. Was I just revenge for you in the beginning? The moment of reckoning had arrived. I could lie, craft a complete denial that would preserve the narrative she wanted to believe. Or I could offer the complicated truth and risk losing her. When you first came to me about your concerns regarding your father, I began carefully. I was still deeply wounded by Elise's betrayal. When I discovered that her affair was with Ryan, yes, part of me saw a certain symmetry in becoming close to you. A way to balance the scales. Her face remained impassive, but I saw the hurt flash in her eyes. I continued quickly, needing her to understand the full truth. But Sophia, what began as something calculated, evolved into something genuine more rapidly than I could have anticipated. Your intelligence, your resilience, your compassion, I fell in love with you for who you are, not for what our relationship might represent to Ryan. How can I believe that? She asked, her voice small. How do I know where the revenge plot ends and real feelings begin? I moved closer, relief washing through me when she didn't step back. Because I'm telling you the truth now, when lying would be easier. Because I'm risking losing you by admitting that my initial interest wasn't purely altruistic. Her eyes searched mine, looking for deception. When did it change? When did revenge stop being the point? That evening in the park, I said without hesitation. When you told me talking to me was the only thing that made you feel better, something shifted then. I realized I was finding healing with you that had nothing to do with getting back at Ryan. She nodded slowly, processing this. And now, Is there still a part of you that enjoys this because it hurts him? This required absolute honesty. Yes, I admitted. I won't pretend I didn't feel satisfaction seeing his face tonight. But that's secondary, a footnote to what we've built together. If Ryan and Elise disappeared tomorrow, never to be seen again, my feelings for you wouldn't change. Sophia moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. I waited, giving her the space to process my confession, braced for the possibility that this revelation might end what we'd started. I understand revenge, she said finally, still facing the window. After Dad left, after I found out about the affair, I had fantasies about hurting him too, making him feel as betrayed as I felt. She turned to face me, her expression resolute. So I understand where you began. I might even have done the same in your position. What matters to me is where we are now. Do you love me, Daniel? Not as Ryan's daughter, but as myself? With everything I am, I replied, the words coming easily because they were true. You've helped me find parts of myself I thought were destroyed by betrayal. You've given me hope, purpose, joy. That has nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with who you are. She studied my face for a long moment, then slowly crossed the room to stand before me. I believe you, she said simply, because I've watched how you've changed over these months. How we've changed each other. Relief washed through me as she leaned up to kiss me, her lips soft against mine, forgiving and accepting all at once. When we broke apart, her eyes were clear, determined. No more secrets, she said. Whatever came before, whatever complicated motivations brought us together, from now on, we're honest with each other. Completely. Completely, I agreed, drawing her close, marveling at how this extraordinary young woman could understand and accept the darker impulses that had initially drawn me to her, while still believing in the love we'd built. As we moved to her bedroom, shedding clothes and pretenses alike, I realized that the perfect revenge had transformed into something far more valuable. A second chance at love, at family, at future. Yes, Ryan's pain still satisfied the wounded part of me that had plotted this connection in the first place. But Sophia's love healed deeper wounds I hadn't even known were there. In finding revenge, I had found redemption. In pursuing justice, I had found joy. And in the daughter of the man who betrayed me, I had found a partner who saw me completely, flawed motivations and all, and chose me anyway. That night, as Sophia slept beside me, I sent a brief text to an old college friend who worked at the clerk's office downtown. Need info on marriage license requirements. The perfect ending to this story was taking shape in my mind. Not just a relationship with Ryan's daughter, but a permanent bond. A lifelong connection that would remind him, every holiday, every family gathering, every milestone in Sophia's life, of the consequences of his betrayal. My wife ran off with my best friend, so I married his daughter. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was poetry. And unlike Ryan and Elise's relationship, built on lies and betrayal, what Sophia and I were building was founded on honesty, shared healing, and genuine love. Perfect symmetry indeed. The morning after our revelation to Ryan, I woke before Sophia, watching her sleep with a mix of tenderness and lingering disbelief at how dramatically my life had changed in the months since discovering Elise's betrayal. From the depths of devastation had come this unexpected renewal. A relationship that had begun as calculated revenge, but blossomed into something genuine and sustaining. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. My friend at the clerk's office responding to my late-night inquiry about marriage licenses. Pretty straightforward process, he wrote. Happy to walk you through it when you're ready. Big step, man. You sure about this? Was I sure? I studied Sophia's peaceful face, her dark lashes against her cheeks, the slight part of her lips as she breathed deeply. The calculated avenger in me, the man who had initially seen her as an instrument of revenge against her father, recognized the perfect symmetry of marriage. It would cement Ryan's punishment, creating a permanent family connection that would force him to face the consequences of his betrayal at every holiday, every family gathering, every significant milestone in Sophia's life. But the man I had become with her, the man who had found healing and purpose in her arms, wanted marriage for entirely different reasons. I wanted to build a life with this remarkable woman. I wanted to wake up beside her every morning, to face life's challenges together, to create new memories untainted by betrayal. I wanted her to be my wife because I loved her, not because of who her father was. Getting serious, I texted back. Need to think it through more, but yes, heading that direction. The reply came quickly. Never thought I'd see you considering marriage again after Elise. She must be special. She is. I responded simply, then set my phone aside as Sophia stirred beside me. Morning, she murmured, stretching languidly before curling against my side. What time is it? Just after 8, I told her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Sleep okay? She nodded, then frowned slightly. I had weird dreams about Dad. About the dinner last night. Not surprising, I said, stroking her hair. It was intense. She propped herself up on one elbow, her expression turning serious. Are you really okay with everything we talked about? My dad's accusations? Your admission about how things started between us? I met her gaze steadily. I meant what I said. What began for complicated reasons has become the most genuine thing in my life. I took her hand, entwining our fingers. I love you, Sophia. Not as Ryan's daughter, but as the extraordinary woman you are. Her smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. I love you too. She leaned down to kiss me, morning breath be damned, before settling her head on my chest. So what happens now? Now, I repeated, my friend's text about marriage licenses flashing through my mind. Now we continue building something real together, and we deal with the fallout from last night. The fallout came sooner than anticipated. While we were still having coffee, Sophia's phone erupted with messages. First from her mother, then a flurry from friends and family members. News traveled fast. Dad told Mom, she confirmed, scrolling through the text with a grimace. And apparently Mom told everyone else. What's the verdict? I asked, bracing for the worst. Mom wants to meet with me ASAP. Sophia sighed. Alone. She's not happy. That's understating it. I guessed, reading the tension in her posture. She called our relationship disturbing and inappropriate. Sophia confirmed, still reading. Says Dad is beside himself. I couldn't deny the flash of satisfaction at hearing Ryan was suffering, though I kept my expression neutral for Sophia's sake. Are you going to meet with her? I have to, she said, setting her phone down. She's still my mom. And unlike Dad, she didn't betray anyone or blow up our family. She deserves to hear from me directly. Her maturity and sense of responsibility were part of what had drawn me to her, what had transformed my calculated interest into genuine love. Would you like me to come with you? She shook her head. I need to do this alone. Mom will be more honest that way. Less defensive. When? She wants to meet for lunch today. Sophia ran a hand through her tousled hair. I should get ready, mentally prepare. Whatever she says. I told her, remember that we're adults making our own choices. Your mother's feelings are valid, but they don't dictate our relationship. I know. She squeezed my hand, but I still care what she thinks. She's been through so much with Dad's betrayal. I hate adding to her pain. The reminder of collateral damage, Melanie's ongoing suffering, sent a pang of discomfort through me. Unlike Ryan and Elise, who deserved every ounce of discomfort our relationship caused them, Melanie was an innocent caught in the crossfire, just as I had been when Ryan and Elise began their affair. Just be honest with her, I advised. That's all you can do. After Sophia left to meet her mother, I spent the afternoon in a strange limbo, alternating between reviewing work projects to distract myself and checking my phone for updates. The confrontation with Ryan had gone more or less as expected, but Melanie was a wild card. Unlike her ex-husband, she had every right to be concerned about her daughter's choices, with no hypocrisy to temper her reaction. Around 3 o'clock, my phone rang, not Sophia, but Ryan. I stared at his name on the screen, tempted to let it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. Hello, Ryan, I answered, keeping my voice neutral. We need to talk, he said without preamble, his tone clipped. Without Sophia present, I'm not sure we have anything to discuss. Don't play games, Daniel, he snapped. You know exactly what this is about. I sighed, settling onto my couch. Fine, say what you need to say. Not over the phone, he insisted. In person. Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour by the old boathouse. The choice of location wasn't accidental. Riverside Park had been our regular running spot for years before the betrayal, the boathouse a frequent meeting point. It was neutral territory, away from either of our homes, but weighted with the history of our former friendship. Why should I? I challenged, though I was already considering it. Because despite what you may think, I care about my daughter. He replied, some of the anger leaving his voice. And this conversation needs to happen if there's any chance of salvaging any kind of relationship between all of us. It was a reasonable point, though I doubted his motives were as selfless as he claimed. More likely, he hoped to convince me to end things with Sophia, to release her from what he perceived as a revenge-driven manipulation. 1 hour, I agreed. But I'm not changing my relationship with Sophia based on anything you have to say. Just be there, he said and hung up. The boathouse at Riverside Park stood as it always had, weathered wood and peeling paint against the backdrop of the river. Ryan was already waiting when I arrived, leaning against the railing, staring out at the water. He'd aged in the months since the affair came to light. New lines around his eyes, a slight slump to shoulders that had always been confidently squared. Seeing him now, I felt a complex mixture of satisfaction at his suffering and a strange, unwanted echo of our old friendship. "You came," he said as I approached, not turning from the water. "You said it was important." I joined him at the railing, maintaining a careful distance. "So talk." He was silent for a moment, organizing his thoughts. "I've known you for over 20 years, Daniel. I know how you think, how you plan, how you respond to things. And," I prompted, unmoved by this preamble, "and I know this relationship with my daughter didn't just happen organically." He finally turned to face me. "You saw an opportunity for the perfect revenge and took it, using Sophia to hurt me the way I hurt you." "You're partly right," I acknowledged, seeing no point in complete denial. "When Sophia first came to me, I was still processing my own pain and betrayal. The symmetry wasn't lost on me." His jaw tightened. "So you admit it?" "What I admit is that things began in a complicated place," I clarified. "What I won't concede is that what Sophia and I have built together is anything but genuine now." "You expect me to believe you've fallen in love with my 23-year-old daughter?" His disbelief was palpable. "A girl you've known since she was a child? I expect you to recognize that Sophia is a grown woman, capable of making her own choices." I countered. "And yes, I love her. Not as the child she was, but as the woman she's become." Ryan scoffed, turning back to the water. "This is about getting back at me. About taking something from me the way I took Elise from you? You give yourself too much credit," I said coolly. "Our relationship has evolved far beyond any connection to you." "Then end it," he challenged, turning back to me with sudden intensity. "If it's not about revenge, if you truly care about Sophia's well-being, walk away before this goes any further." I raised an eyebrow. "How exactly would abandoning her demonstrate care?" "Because this relationship will isolate her," he argued. "It's already causing rifts with Melanie, with her extended family, with friends who think the age gap and circumstances are inappropriate." "Circumstances you created," I reminded him sharply. "When you destroyed 2 families for your affair with my wife." He flinched at that, a flash of genuine remorse crossing his features before hardening into defensiveness. "What Elise and I did was wrong," he acknowledged. "The way we went about it was selfish and hurtful. But what we have is real, Daniel. Not calculated, not revenge-driven. And what Sophia and I have is also real," I insisted. "Whatever complicated emotions might have been present at the beginning. If you truly believe that," Ryan said, his voice dropping lower, "then you'll understand why I'm asking you to consider the impact this relationship will have on her life, on her future." I studied him, trying to parse the genuine concern for his daughter from his own discomfort at the situation. "What specifically concerns you about our relationship, Ryan? Beyond the obvious connection to you?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair, another familiar gesture from our years of friendship. "The age difference, your recent divorce, the power imbalance. Take your pick. Sophia is 23, not 18, I pointed out. She has a college degree, a career, her own apartment. There's no power imbalance beyond what exists in any relationship with an age gap. She's vulnerable right now," he countered. "Her family just imploded because of my choices. She's still processing that trauma. As am I reminded him. "We're helping each other heal." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Is that what you tell yourself?" "It's the truth," I said simply. "We found connection in shared pain and built something meaningful from there." Ryan shook his head slowly. "Melanie's devastated by this, you know. First her husband betrays her, then her daughter starts dating his former best friend. She feels like her entire family has been hijacked." This gave me pause. Melanie's pain wasn't something I'd considered deeply enough, focused as I'd been on my revenge against Ryan and my growing feelings for Sophia. "Sophia's meeting with her mother now," I said. "They'll work through this in their own way." "And if they don't?" Ryan challenged. "If this relationship permanently damages Sophia's relationship with her mother, is that a price you're willing to let her pay?" The question hit harder than I wanted to admit. I'd been so focused on my own narrative, betrayal, revenge, unexpected love, that I hadn't fully considered all the ripple effects on Sophia's life, on her relationship with the parent who hadn't betrayed her. "That's for Sophia to decide," I said finally. Unlike you and Elise, we're not hiding our relationship or making decisions without considering others' feelings. Ryan was silent for a long moment, staring out at the water. I can't stop you, he said eventually. I've forfeited any moral high ground I might have had, but I'm asking you, as someone who once was your closest friend, to proceed with extreme caution, to put Sophia's well-being above everything else, including your feelings for her, and especially including any lingering desire to punish me. His words carried more weight than I wanted to admit. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and pain he'd caused, there was a grain of truth in his concern that I couldn't entirely dismiss. I love your daughter, I said quietly, not to hurt you, but because of who she is. Whatever you believe about how things started between us, that's the truth now. Ryan nodded slowly, accepting if not quite believing. Then prove it by making sure this relationship brings her more happiness than pain. I intend to, I assured him. As we parted ways, a strange new tension had replaced the straightforward animosity of our dinner confrontation. Ryan couldn't condemn our relationship without highlighting his own hypocrisy, and I couldn't entirely dismiss his concerns without questioning my commitment to Sophia's happiness. We were locked in a new kind of stalemate, one that would likely define our interactions for years to come. I was still processing our conversation when Sophia called. How did it go with your mother? I asked immediately. About as well as could be expected, she sighed. Can I come over? I need to see you. 20 minutes later, she was at my door. Her eyes reddened from crying, but her posture determined. I pulled her into my arms, feeling her body relax against mine as if coming home. That bad? I murmured into her hair. Mom wasn't angry exactly, she explained as we moved to the living room couch. More devastated. Confused. She kept asking if this was some kind of reaction to Dad's affair, if I was trying to punish him. What did you tell her? The truth, Sophia said, curling against my side. That while our connection began because of what Dad and Elise did, what's grown between us is genuine. That I love you. Warmth spread through my chest at her words, at the certainty in her voice. And she didn't believe you? She wants to, Sophia said thoughtfully. Mom's always respected my independence, my judgment. But the circumstances are so unusual. She can't help wondering if I'm making choices from a place of pain rather than clarity. It's a fair question, I acknowledged, thinking of Ryan's similar concerns. One I've asked myself. She looked up at me sharply. Do you doubt what we have? No, I assured her quickly. But I understand why others might. Two people connected by betrayal, finding comfort in each other. It's natural to question whether that's a solid foundation. But we know it is, she insisted. We've been honest with each other, even about the complicated beginnings. That's more than Dad and Elise can say. I nodded, stroking her hair absently. Did your mother mention anything specific that concerned her? Beyond the general circumstances? Sophia hesitated. She worries about the age difference. About the fact that you've known me since I was a child, though in a distant way, and ... She paused. She worries about what people will say, how they'll look at us. Does that bother you? I asked carefully. What others might think. Sometimes, she admitted with characteristic honesty. When I imagine explaining our relationship to new friends, colleagues, future children, she blushed slightly at this. It's a complicated story, one that doesn't always cast us in the best light. The mention of potential children sent an unexpected jolt through me. I hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered how our unusual beginning might be explained to a next generation. The revenge element that had once seemed so satisfying now felt like a potential shadow over our future. We can't change how things began, I said slowly, but we can determine what our relationship becomes, how we build from here. She nodded against my chest. Mom asked if I was sure about you. If I was sure this wasn't just rebellion or confusion or Stockholm syndrome or something. I pulled back slightly to look at her face. And what did you tell her? That I've never been more sure of anything. She met my gaze steadily. That when everything else in my life fell apart, you were the one constant I could rely on. The one person who understood exactly what I was going through without judgment or platitudes. And that was enough for her? I asked skeptically. Sophia smiled wryly. Of course not. But she agreed to meet you, to talk with both of us together, to see for herself what we're like as a couple. The prospect of facing Melanie, the innocent party in all of this, the woman whose family had been shattered by the same betrayal that had destroyed mine, was daunting. Unlike Ryan, she had every right to question our relationship, to judge my intentions toward her daughter. When? I asked, already mentally preparing for another difficult conversation. Tomorrow evening, Sophia said. She suggested dinner at her place? Just the three of us. I nodded slowly. I'll be there. For what it's worth, I think it's a good idea for her to see us together. To judge for herself. Sophia relaxed visibly. Thank you. I know it won't be easy, but it means a lot that you're willing to face this with me. That night, as Sophia slept beside me, I found myself staring at the ceiling, turning over the conversations with Ryan and the upcoming meeting with Melanie. The revenge that had once seemed so perfect, so justified, was revealing its complications. Not for me and not for the deserving targets of Ryan and Elise, but for the innocent bystanders. Melanie, who had lost her husband to my wife and now watched her daughter turn to me. Any future children who would one day ask how their parents met. Even Sophia herself navigating the complex family dynamics our relationship created. For the first time, I questioned whether my initial motives, however they had evolved, might eventually taint what Sophia and I were building. Whether the satisfaction of seeing Ryan's face when he realized his daughter had chosen me was worth the potential long-term complications. Yet when I looked at Sophia's sleeping face, when I recalled the genuine connection we'd built in recent months, I couldn't imagine walking away. Whatever had brought us together, what we had now was real. Worth fighting for, worth explaining to Melanie, to society, to any future children. The next evening found us on Melanie's doorstep, Sophia clutching a bottle of her mother's favorite wine, me holding a bouquet of flowers that suddenly seemed woefully inadequate for the occasion. The suburban home where Sophia had grown up, where Ryan had lived until his affair came to light, felt like entering another world. Family photos still hung on the walls, though I noticed several featuring Ryan had been removed, leaving conspicuous empty spaces in the arrangements. Melanie greeted us with composed politeness, accepting the wine and flowers with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. At 48, she remained an attractive woman, the source of Sophia's dark hair and expressive eyes, though months of stress had etched new lines around her mouth and between her brows. Daniel, she said, her voice carefully neutral as she led us to the dining room. It's been a while. The understatement hung in the air. The last time I'd seen Melanie had been at a dinner party months before the affairs were revealed, when we were still two happily married couples in a long-standing friendship. Before her husband ran off with my wife. Before I began a relationship with her daughter. Thank you for having us, I replied, equally careful. For being willing to talk. Her eyes assessed me frankly. Sophia is my daughter. I owe it to her to understand her choices, even when they surprised me. Dinner began with awkward small talk. Sophia's work, Melanie's garden, neutral topics that carefully avoided the elephant in the room. It wasn't until we were halfway through the main course that Melanie finally addressed the actual purpose of our gathering. So, she said, setting down her fork with deliberate precision. How exactly did this relationship begin? Sophia's given me her perspective, but I'd like to hear yours, Daniel. Direct and unflinching. It was what I'd always appreciated about Melanie during our years of friendship. Now that directness was trained on me like a spotlight, leaving nowhere to hide. Sophia came to me initially with concerns about Ryan's behavior. I began carefully. This was before either of us knew about the affair. She noticed signs that something was wrong and reached out to me as someone who knew her father well. And you didn't find it odd that she came to you rather than discussing her concerns with me? Melanie asked pointedly. Sophia interjected, Mom, we've been over this. I didn't want to worry you with what might have been nothing. Daniel was Dad's best friend. I thought he might have insights or could talk to Dad directly. Melanie nodded, accepting this if not entirely convinced. Continue. As Sophia and I talked more, the parallels in our situations became apparent. I explained. I was noticing similar changes in Elise's behavior. We were both navigating uncertainty, trying to understand what was happening to our families. So you bonded over mutual suspicion of your spouses? Melanie summarized flatly. Initially, yes, I acknowledge. And then over mutual pain when those suspicions were confirmed. When Ryan and Elise revealed their affair, convenient timing, she observed with a hint of bitterness. You were both vulnerable, both betrayed by the same people. We were, I agreed, which is why we were extremely careful about how our relationship evolved. We didn't jump into anything, Melanie. We built a friendship first, a foundation of trust and mutual understanding. She raised a skeptical eyebrow. And at what point did you start seeing my 23-year-old daughter as a romantic prospect rather than your best friend's child? The question was pointed, designed to highlight the unusual nature of our connection. Rather than becoming defensive, I opted for complete honesty. It wasn't a single moment. I told her it was a gradual recognition that the support and understanding we found in each other was evolving into something deeper. That despite the unconventional circumstances, we connected in ways that felt meaningful and genuine. And the fact that she's Ryan's daughter, Melanie pressed, that had nothing to do with your interest? Here was the crux. The question I couldn't answer with complete honesty without potentially damaging what Sophia and I had built. Yes, in the beginning, the symmetry had been a significant part of the appeal. The perfect revenge against the man who had betrayed me. But that motivation had evolved, had been eclipsed by genuine feelings for the remarkable woman Sophia was in her own right. I won't pretend I was oblivious to the connection, I said carefully, or that there wasn't a certain symmetry to the situation that I recognized. But what drew me to Sophia, what continues to draw me to her, is who she is as a person, her intelligence, her resilience, her compassionate heart. Sophia reached across the table to take my hand, a gesture of solidarity that didn't escape her mother's notice. You're both adults, Melanie acknowledged after a moment. I can't dictate Sophia's choices, and I won't try. But I need to be clear about my concerns. Perkina, please, I encouraged. Be completely honest. She nodded, gathering her thoughts. First, there's the age difference. 22 years is significant, Daniel. You're at different life stages with different experiences and expectations. We've discussed this, Sophia interjected. Extensively. We know the challenges. Second, Melanie continued undeterred. There's the unavoidable connection to Ryan and Elise. Every family gathering, every holiday, every milestone in Sophia's life will be complicated by this relationship. The four of you will be forever linked in ways that will create ongoing tension and discomfort. She wasn't wrong. The very permanence of connection that made this relationship the perfect revenge against Ryan would also create lasting complications for all involved, including Sophia. And finally, Melanie concluded, her voice softening slightly. I worry about Sophia's motivations, about whether this relationship is partly driven by anger toward her father, by a desire to hurt him the way he hurt us. Sophia stiffened beside me. That's not fair, Mom. You're questioning my agency, my ability to know my own mind. I'm acknowledging that trauma affects our choices, Melanie corrected gently. That pain can drive us toward decisions we might not make under different circumstances. Even if that were partially true at the beginning, I interjected, what matters is what we've built now. The genuine connection we've established beyond the circumstances that brought us together. Melanie studied me thoughtfully. You seem very certain of your feelings, Daniel. I am, I confirmed. I love your daughter for exactly who she is. The fact that she's Ryan's daughter has become irrelevant to how I feel about her. And yet, Melanie observed shrewdly, you can't deny there must be some satisfaction in the symmetry of the situation, in knowing that the man who took your wife must now watch his daughter choose you. The accuracy of her assessment was unsettling. Had I been so transparent? Or was Melanie simply perceptive enough to recognize the revenge element that had been present at the beginning? Before I could formulate a response, Sophia spoke up. Mom, Daniel has been completely honest with me about the complicated emotions he had initially. We've discussed this extensively. There's nothing you're saying that we haven't already confronted together. Melanie's eyebrows rose slightly. So you acknowledge there was an element of revenge in the beginning? I acknowledge that our relationship began in a complicated emotional landscape, Sophia replied carefully. For both of us. But what matters is what we've built from there. What we continue to build. Melanie nodded slowly, her expression softening. I can see you've thought this through more thoroughly than I initially gave you credit for. She turned to me. And I appreciate your willingness to face these uncomfortable questions directly, Daniel. I understand your concerns. I told her sincerely. In your position, I would have the same ones. All I can tell you is that I love your daughter and want what's best for her. If at any point I believed our relationship was causing her more harm than good, I would step back. Something in my words seemed to reach Melanie. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, her expression becoming less guarded. Sophia has always had good judgment, she said, reaching for her daughter's hand. Even as a teenager, she saw things clearly, made thoughtful choices. If she sees something real in this relationship, I need to trust that. Relief washed through me at this tentative acceptance. Not enthusiastic approval, certainly, but an acknowledgement of Sophia's agency and the possibility that what we had built together might be genuine, despite its unusual beginnings. Thank you, Mom, Sophia said softly, squeezing her mother's hand. Your support means everything to me. I'm reserving final judgment, Melanie clarified with a hint of her usual directness. But I'm willing to observe with an open mind. It was more than I had expected, more than we perhaps deserved given the complicated circumstances. As dinner concluded, Melanie pulled me aside while Sophia used the bathroom. If this is a game to you, she said quietly, her eyes hard, if you're using my daughter to punish Ryan, I will never forgive you. And neither will Sophia when she discovers the truth. It's not a game, I assured her. Whatever complicated emotions might have been present at the beginning, what I feel for Sophia now is completely genuine. Melanie studied my face, searching for deception. For her sake, I hope that's true. As we drove home from Melanie's house, Sophia was quiet, processing the evening's conversations. Finally, she broke the silence. That went better than I expected, she said cautiously. Mom's still not thrilled, but at least she's willing to give us a chance. She loves you, I replied simply. Enough to respect your choices even when she doesn't fully understand them. Sophia turned to look at me, her expression thoughtful. What my mom said about symmetry, about you enjoying the revenge aspect, was she right? Is that still part of it for you? The question deserved complete honesty. There's still a part of me that finds satisfaction in the knowledge that our relationship bothers Ryan, I admitted. I won't pretend otherwise. But that's entirely separate from how I feel about you. She nodded slowly. I think I understand that. Sometimes I feel something similar. A flash of satisfaction knowing Dad has to accept my choices after making his own selfish ones. It doesn't mean I'm with you to hurt him. It's just human. Her understanding, her ability to acknowledge the complexity of emotions without judgment, reminded me again of why I had fallen in love with her. Exactly, I agreed. Human. So what now? She asked as we arrived at my house. Where do we go from here? The question felt weightier than perhaps she intended, touching on the future I'd been contemplating more seriously since my text exchange about marriage licenses. Was it too soon to raise the possibility? Would suggesting marriage now seem like an escalation driven by the confrontations with Ryan and Melanie, rather than a natural progression of our relationship? Now we continue building something real together, I said, echoing my words from days earlier. Without hiding, without apologizing for finding happiness after betrayal. She smiled, seeming satisfied with this answer. I like that plan. Over the next few weeks, our relationship settled into a new phase. Fully acknowledged by the key people in our lives, no longer hidden or tentative. Ryan maintained a cool distance, communicating with Sophia but avoiding any situation where he might encounter me. Elise, surprisingly, reached out via text to express something like resigned acceptance, though her message hinted at concerns similar to those Melanie had raised about my motivations. I hope you're both happy, she wrote. Whatever brought you together, I didn't respond. Elise had forfeited any right to opinions about my relationships when she betrayed our marriage. Her tentative olive branch, if that's what it was, didn't merit acknowledgement. Melanie, true to her word, observed our relationship with cautious neutrality, gradually warming as she saw the genuine connection between Sophia and me. She invited us to dinner regularly, creating space for a new kind of family dynamic to emerge from the wreckage of betrayal. Through it all, Sophia and I grew closer, spending most nights together, talking about increasingly serious future plans. She spoke of potentially pursuing a master's degree. I contemplated opening my own investment advisory firm. We discussed travel destinations, living arrangements, the possibility of eventually buying a house together. The revenge element that had initially driven me toward her receded further into the background, overshadowed by the genuine partnership we were building. Yet the question of marriage hovered in my mind, unspoken but persistent. The timing felt simultaneously too soon and exactly right. We'd been together only a few months, but had weathered challenges that many couples never face in years of marriage. We'd confronted the complicated beginnings of our relationship, faced the judgment of family and friends, and emerged stronger for it. The opportunity to raise the subject came unexpectedly, during a weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin about 3 hours from the city. Away from work, family complications, and the everyday pressures of life, we'd spent 2 days hiking, reading by the fire, cooking simple meals together, and making love with a leisurely intimacy that deepened our connection. On our final evening, sitting on the cabin's porch watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of orange and gold, Sophia turned to me with unexpected seriousness. "Can I ask you something?" she began, her voice hesitant. "Anything," I replied, curious at her sudden shift in mood. "Where do you see this going?" she asked, gesturing between us. "Us, I mean, long term." The question created a perfect opening for what I'd been considering for weeks. Still, I proceeded carefully. I see a future with you, Sophia. A life we build together. What kind of life? She pressed gently. I'm not trying to push for specific commitments. I need to know if we want the same things. I took her hand, making a spontaneous decision to be completely transparent about my thoughts. I've been thinking about marriage, I admitted. About whether it's something we might consider when the time feels right. Her eyes widened, a mixture of surprise and something warmer lighting her features. You have? It's not something I ever expected to contemplate again after Elise. I continued honestly. The betrayal, the divorce, it made me question whether I'd ever want to commit to someone that way again. But with you, I squeezed her hand. With you, I can imagine it. Want it even? I've thought about it too, she confessed, a slight blush coloring her cheeks. But I wasn't sure if it was too soon to bring up. If you'd think I was rushing things, relief and joy flooded through me at her admission. It is soon, I acknowledge, by conventional timelines. But nothing about our relationship has been conventional. She laughed softly. That's certainly true. I'm not formally proposing right this moment, I clarified. When I do that, I want it to be special, memorable. But I wanted you to know that's where my thoughts are heading. That I see marriage as part of our future, if that's what you want too. It is, she said simply, her eyes shining in the fading light. Whenever the time feels right. I'm not in a rush, Daniel. I just wanted to know we were on the same page. The conversation shifted to more specific aspects of our potential future. Where we might live, whether we wanted children, yes, eventually. How we might navigate the complex family dynamics of holidays and celebrations. The abstract notion of marriage became something more concrete, a framework for the life we were beginning to envision together. When we returned to the city the following day, something had shifted between us. A new certainty, a shared understanding of where we were heading. The tentative, what are we, phase of our relationship had definitively ended. We were building toward marriage, toward a permanent commitment that would both validate the genuine love we'd found and, yes, serve as the final, perfect symmetry in my revenge against Ryan. Because while I loved Sophia genuinely, completely, for exactly who she was, I couldn't deny the satisfaction I would feel watching Ryan walk his daughter down the aisle to me. Seeing him forced to participate in the ceremony that would permanently bind his daughter to the man he had betrayed. It would be the culmination of the revenge I had initially sought, delivered in a package of genuine love and commitment. The following weeks were filled with a new kind of planning, not just everyday logistics, but longer-term considerations. We visited more open houses, discussing neighborhoods we might eventually buy in. We opened a joint checking account for shared expenses, a small step toward merging our financial lives. We had dinner with Melanie more frequently, cementing my reintegration into Sophia's family structure in my new role. Ryan and Elise remained distant figures, acknowledged but not engaged with. They had moved into a larger apartment downtown, establishing their life together with a permanence that suggested their affair had indeed been more than a midlife crisis or temporary infatuation. According to Sophia's occasional updates from conversations with her father, they seemed happy, though Ryan continued to express concerns about our relationship whenever the subject arose. 3 months after our lakeside conversation about marriage, I decided the time was right for a formal proposal. Not rushed, but not unnecessarily delayed either. We had been together for 8 months, a relatively short time by conventional standards, but long enough given the intensity of what we'd navigated together. The ring I selected was nothing like the one I'd given Elise years earlier. Where her engagement ring had been a traditional diamond solitaire, classic and expected, Sophia's was a sapphire surrounded by smaller diamonds, unique and distinctive like our relationship. I planned a weekend in Vermont at a small inn known for its excellent restaurant and scenic mountain views. Far from the city, from family complications, from the history of betrayal that had initially brought us together. The evening of the proposal, as we dressed for dinner at the inn's restaurant, I found myself uncharacteristically nervous. Not because I doubted her answer. Our recent conversations had made her enthusiasm for marriage clear, but because this moment represented a definitive shift. From the man who had sought revenge against his former best friend, to the man who was genuinely, completely in love with Sophia for exactly who she was. The restaurant was intimate, candlelit, with wide windows overlooking the mountains now painted deep blue in the evening light. I had arranged for a private table in a secluded corner, with champagne already chilling in an ice bucket when we arrived. "This is lovely," Sophia commented as we were seated, glancing around appreciatively. "Special occasion. Just wanted tonight to be memorable." I replied with a smile that barely contained my nervousness. We ordered, making easy conversation as we always did, though I found myself struggling to focus on the discussion of a book she'd recently finished. The small velvet box in my jacket pocket seemed to burn against my chest, a physical manifestation of the future I was about to propose. When the main course was cleared, I signaled the waiter for the champagne to be poured. Sophia raised an eyebrow as the glasses were set before us. "Champagne and that look on your face," she observed with a knowing smile. Should I be anticipating something? Rather than answering, I reached across the table for her hand. "These past 8 months have been the most unexpected journey of my life." I began, the words I'd rehearsed flowing naturally now. What began in the worst kind of pain transformed into something beautiful, something I never anticipated finding again. Her eyes softened, recognition dawning as she realized what was happening. "You've shown me that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story," I continued. "That sometimes from the deepest wounds come the most profound healing. You've helped me rediscover parts of myself I thought were destroyed forever. My capacity for trust, for vulnerability, for love." I stood, moving around the table to kneel beside her chair, aware of the restaurant growing quieter as other diners noticed what was happening. "I know our beginning was unconventional," I acknowledged, taking both her hands in mine. "But what we've built together is real, Sophia. More real than anything I've ever known. You see me completely, the good and the bad, the strength and the vulnerability, and love me anyway." Tears glistened in her eyes as I reached into my pocket, withdrawing the small velvet box and opening it to reveal the sapphire ring. "Sophia Matthews, I love you with everything I am. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered immediately, tears spilling onto her cheeks. "Yes, absolutely yes." As I slipped the ring onto her finger, as the restaurant erupted in applause from strangers witnessing our moment, as Sophia leaned down to kiss me with all the promise of our future wrapped in her embrace, I felt the last lingering threads of my revenge motivation dissolve completely. Yes, Ryan would still have to face the reality of his daughter marrying the man he had betrayed. Yes, there would still be satisfaction in that symmetry. But in this moment, that felt entirely secondary to the joy of committing to a future with the woman I had come to love deeply, genuinely, for exactly who she was. Later that night, as we lay tangled together in the inn's 4-poster bed, Sophia admired her ring in the moonlight, streaming through the windows. "It's perfect," she murmured. "Nothing like I would have expected, but exactly what I would have chosen." "Like us," I suggested, pressing a kiss to her shoulder. She turned to face me, her expression suddenly serious. "Daniel, I need to ask you something. And I need complete honesty." My heart rate quickened slightly. "Anything. When you proposed just now," she began carefully, "when you asked me to marry you, was any part of you thinking about my father? About how this would affect him?" The question was pointed, direct in Sophia's characteristic way, and it deserved complete honesty. "No," I said truthfully. "In that moment, Ryan wasn't in my thoughts at all. Only you. Only us in the future we're building." Relief softened her features. "Good," she said simply, "because I want our marriage to be about us, not about the people who brought us together through their betrayal." "It will be," I promised, drawing her closer. "Whatever complicated emotions brought us together initially, what we've built is ours alone." The next morning, as Sophia called her mother to share our news, I found myself contemplating how to handle Ryan's inevitable reaction. Protocol suggested that as the father of the bride, he should be informed directly about the engagement. Yet our strained relationship made that conversation awkward at best, potentially explosive at worst. "Mom's happy for us," Sophia reported after ending her call. "Said she's been expecting this announcement for weeks." "And she's okay with it?" I asked, still mindful of Melanie's initial reservations. "More than okay," Sophia confirmed with a smile. "She said she's seen enough of us together to know this is the real thing, not a reaction to trauma or an attempt at revenge." The word revenge hung in the air briefly, a reminder of motivations long since transformed, but never entirely forgotten. "We should tell your father," I said carefully, "before he hears from someone else." Sophia's smile faded slightly. "I know. I'm not looking forward to that conversation. Would you prefer to tell him alone?" I offered. "Or would you like me there?" She considered this, twisting her new ring absently. "I think I should do it alone first." She decided. "He'll be more honest about his reaction without you present. Then if he can be civil, maybe we can all talk afterward." The wisdom of her approach struck me anew. Despite her youth, Sophia navigated complex emotional terrain with remarkable maturity, one of the many qualities that had transformed my calculated interest into genuine love. Whatever you think best, I agreed. I'll follow your lead on this. 2 days after returning to the city, Sophia arranged to meet Ryan for lunch. I spent the hour of their meeting in my office, unable to focus on work, checking my phone repeatedly for updates. When it finally lit up with her name, I answered immediately. "How did it go?" I asked without preamble. "About as expected," she sighed, background noise suggesting she was walking outside. Initial shock, attempts to convince me I'm making a mistake, dire warnings about rushing into marriage with someone still healing from betrayal. The usual concerns. I summarized, relieved it hadn't been worse. "He did congratulate me eventually," she added, after realizing his objections weren't changing my mind. "Asked to meet with both of us tomorrow if you're willing." I hesitated, surprised by this development. "Did he say why?" "Just that he wanted to talk to us together, as my fiancé. He promised to be civil." The prospect of facing Ryan, of watching him struggle to accept our engagement, carried a certain satisfaction. The revenge element that had receded might be temporarily reawakened by seeing his discomfort firsthand. Yet I also recognized that for Sophia's sake, establishing some workable relationship with her father would be important long-term. "Of course," I agreed. "Whatever helps make this transition easier for you." The meeting with Ryan took place at a quiet cafe near my office the following afternoon. He was already waiting when we arrived, his expression carefully neutral as he stood to greet us. He kissed Sophia's cheek, then extended his hand to me. The first physical contact between us since before the betrayal. "Congratulations," he said stiffly as we sat. "Sophia told me about your engagement." "Thank you," I replied with equal formality. An uncomfortable silence fell, broken only when the server came to take our orders. Once she departed, Ryan leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. "I've given this a lot of thought," he began, addressing both of us, but focusing primarily on his daughter. "And while I still have reservations about the timing and circumstances of your relationship, I recognize that my opinion on the matter is," he hesitated, "compromised by my own choices." It was as close to an acknowledgement of his hypocrisy as he'd ever offered, and I saw Sophia relax slightly beside me. "That said," Ryan continued, "you're my only daughter, Sophia. Your happiness matters to me, regardless of the complicated situation between Daniel and me." "Thank you, Dad," she said softly. "That means a lot." He turned to me then, his gaze direct and challenging. "I'm assuming you'll want a traditional wedding, with all the usual elements?" The question's subtext was clear. Would I expect him to fulfill the traditional father of the bride role? To walk his daughter down the aisle to the man he had betrayed? The perfect culmination of my revenge. "We haven't discussed specifics yet," I replied carefully. "Those decisions will be based on what makes Sophia happiest." "I would like you to walk me down the aisle, Dad," Sophia interjected, reaching across the table for her father's hand. "If you're willing." Despite everything, that tradition is important to me. Ryan's expression softened as he looked at his daughter. "Of course I will," he assured her. "I wouldn't have it any other way." The conversation shifted to more practical matters. Potential timeframes, venue considerations, who would be invited. Through it all, Ryan maintained a careful civility toward me, though the tension between us remained palpable beneath the surface. As we prepared to leave, Ryan asked for a moment alone with me. Sophia agreed reluctantly, stepping outside to take a work call that had been waiting. "I want to be clear about something," Ryan said once we were alone, his voice low and intent. "I'm doing this for Sophia, not for you. I'll walk her down the aisle. I'll smile in the photos. I'll give a toast at the reception. Whatever makes her happy. I wouldn't expect anything else," I replied evenly. "But I know exactly what this is," he continued, a harder edge entering his tone. "The perfect revenge delivered with a bow. My daughter for your wife." The accuracy of his assessment of what had initially motivated me was unsettling. Yet it no longer encompassed the full truth of my relationship with Sophia. "That might have been part of it in the beginning," I acknowledged, seeing no point in complete denial. "But what Sophia and I have built goes far beyond any connection to you now, Ryan. I'm marrying her because I love her, not to punish you." He studied me for a long moment, searching for deception. "For her sake, I hope that's true," he said finally, unconsciously echoing Melanie's words from months earlier. "Because Sophia deserves better than to be a pawn in our damaged friendship." "On that much, we agree completely," I assured him. As I rejoined Sophia outside, watching her face light up at the sight of me, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. The satisfaction of knowing Ryan would indeed have to walk his daughter down the aisle to me, completing the symmetry of my revenge. But also the genuine joy of building a future with this remarkable woman who had somehow transformed my calculated interest into the most authentic love I'd ever known. The months of wedding planning passed in a blur of venue visits, menu tastings, and guest list negotiations. We settled on a spring ceremony at a restored historic mansion with beautiful gardens, large enough to accommodate our friends and family, but intimate enough to feel personal. Sophia moved into my house permanently, bringing her warmth and energy into spaces that had felt hollow since Elise's departure. Through it all, our unusual family dynamics required careful navigation. Melanie and Ryan needed to be seated separately at the rehearsal dinner and reception. Elise's presence was a particularly delicate question. As Ryan's partner, she would normally be invited, but as my ex-wife who had left me for the father of the bride, her attendance was complicated at best. "What do you want to do about Elise?" I asked Sophia one evening as we reviewed the guest list. "Technically, she's your father's +1. Sophia considered this thoughtfully. "I think we have to invite her," she decided, "not because I particularly want her there, but because excluding her would create more drama than including her. Dad would see it as a slight, it would become a whole thing," she sighed. "Better to just be the bigger people and include her." Her maturity in handling these complex dynamics continued to impress me. "You're probably right," I agreed. And in a strange way, her presence completes the circle. Everyone who was part of the original betrayal, now witnessing the unexpected outcome. Sophia smiled wryly. "When you put it that way, it almost seems fitting." The perfect epilogue to a complicated story. As our wedding day approached, I found myself reflecting more deeply on the journey that had brought us to this point. The devastating discovery of Elise and Ryan's affair. The initial calculation of using Sophia to exact the perfect revenge. The unexpected evolution of those plans into genuine love, authentic partnership. Would I have approached Sophia without the motivation of revenge? Unlikely. The age difference, her position as my best friend's daughter, these would have been insurmountable barriers under normal circumstances. Yet the betrayal had rewritten the rules, created an opening for connection that might never have existed otherwise. In this strange way, I found myself almost grateful for Ryan and Elise's affair. Without their betrayal, I would never have found the deeper, more authentic love I now shared with Sophia. Their selfish actions had inadvertently led to my greatest happiness. The evening before our wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, this perspective crystallized as I watched Ryan interact stiffly with Melanie across the restaurant. Elise sat beside him, visibly uncomfortable in the charged atmosphere of the gathering. Sophia moved easily between her parents, bridging the awkward divide with grace and warmth. Later, as the evening was winding down, Ryan approached me at the bar where I was ordering another drink. "Last night as a free man," he commented with forced casualness. "Any second thoughts?" "None whatsoever," I replied honestly. "Marrying Sophia is the easiest decision I've ever made." He nodded, signaling the bartender for a scotch. "She looks happy," he observed, watching his daughter across the room. "Happier than I've seen her since before." "Before the affair," I finished when he trailed off. "You can say it, Ryan. We're all adults here." He grimaced slightly. "Before everything fell apart," he amended. "I'm glad for that much, at least. That she's found happiness despite the mess I made." The sincerity in his voice was unexpected. "Thank you," I said after a moment. "That means something, coming from you." Ryan turned to face me directly, lowering his voice to ensure our conversation remained private. "I know how this began, Daniel. I'm not naive, but watching you with her over these months, seeing how you look at her, how you treat her." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "I believe you love her now. Whatever your initial motivations." The assessment was so accurate, so aligned with my own understanding of how my feelings had evolved, that I could only nod in acknowledgement. "I do," I confirmed. "More than I thought possible after Elise." A shadow crossed his face at the mention of my ex-wife, a reminder of the betrayal that connected us. "For what it's worth," he said after a moment, "I am sorry for how Elise and I handled things. Not for loving her, I can't apologize for that, but for the way we went about it. The deception, the pain we caused. It was the closest thing to a genuine apology he had offered since the affair came to light. Not perfect, not complete, but something. Water under the bridge now," I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. The anger that had driven me for so long, the need for revenge that had initially drawn me to Sophia, it had transformed into something else entirely. Not forgiveness exactly, but a recognition that what Ryan and Elise had destroyed had ultimately led to something better. Tomorrow, Ryan continued, when I walk Sophia down the aisle to you, I'm doing it because it's what she wants, because it will make her happy. Not because I've fully accepted everything about how we got here. Fair enough, I acknowledge. I wouldn't expect anything more. He raised his glass slightly. To complicated beginnings and hopefully simpler futures. I clinked my glass against his, this small civility a sign of how far we had come. To the future, the wedding day dawned clear and perfect, spring sunshine warming the gardens where our ceremony would take place. As I stood at the altar, waiting for the music that would signal Sophia's arrival, I found myself scanning the gathered guests. Melanie in the front row, elegant in blue, her expression a mixture of pride and lingering concern. Elise further back, beside colleagues from Ryan's firm, her face carefully neutral when our eyes briefly met. Friends from before and after the betrayal, colleagues, family members, all witnessing this unexpected culmination of a story that had begun in pain. When the music changed and the guests rose, I turned to see Sophia at the garden entrance, radiant in a simple white gown that highlighted her natural beauty. Beside her stood Ryan, tension evident in his posture, but pride unmistakable in his expression as he prepared to escort his daughter down the aisle. In that moment, watching them begin their walk toward me, I realized the revenge that had once motivated me had been completely transformed. Yes, there was a certain symmetry to Ryan giving his daughter to the man he had betrayed. Yes, there was a poetic justice to the father of the bride being the same man who had stolen my wife. But those considerations felt hollow, secondary compared to the genuine joy of watching Sophia walk toward our shared future. Her smile, radiant and certain, contained no hint of revenge or calculation, only love, commitment, the promise of the life we would build together. When Ryan placed Sophia's hand in mine, when he stepped back to take his place in the front row, I felt no triumph over him. Only gratitude that the betrayal that had once destroyed me had ultimately led me to the woman now standing beside me, preparing to become my wife. You look beautiful, I whispered as we turned to face the officiant. Happy? She whispered back. More than I ever thought possible. I told her truthfully. The ceremony passed in a blur of vows and rings, promises spoken with complete sincerity before our assembled guests. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, when I kissed Sophia as applause erupted around us, the final threads of my revenge motivation dissolved completely. Ryan's daughter was now my wife, not as retribution for his betrayal, but because we had built something genuine from the ruins he and Elise had left behind. The perfect revenge had become the perfect redemption. At the reception, as we moved through traditional moments, first dance, toasts, cake cutting, I observed the complex dynamics of our unusual family situation with a sense of wonder. Melanie and Ryan navigating careful civility for their daughter's sake. Elise maintaining a low profile, aware of her awkward position in this gathering. Sophia moving between these complicated relationships with grace and confidence, creating space for healing amid lingering tensions. When it came time for the father of the bride toast, Ryan rose, glass in hand, to address the assembled guests. When Sophia was born, he began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his eyes. I made countless promises about the kind of father I would be. Some of those promises I've kept. Others, as she would be the first to tell you, I've broken badly. A ripple of uncomfortable awareness passed through the guests who knew the full story of the betrayal that had reshaped all our lives. But through all the complications, all the mistakes and difficult times, Ryan continued, my love for my daughter has never wavered. Her happiness has always been my highest priority, even when my actions failed to demonstrate that truth. He turned to look at us, his expression complex but genuine. Watching Sophia with Daniel these past months, seeing the partnership they've built, the respect and love they share, I've come to recognize that sometimes life takes unexpected turns toward destinations we couldn't have anticipated. His eyes met mine briefly, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between us, of the complicated journey that had brought us to this moment, of the genuine happiness that had emerged from betrayal. So I raised my glass to the bride and groom. Ryan concluded, may your marriage be built on honesty, respect, and a love that grows stronger through whatever challenges life presents. Sophia, Daniel, to your happiness today and always. As glasses were raised around the room, as I squeezed Sophia's hand beneath the table, I felt a sense of completion, of perfect symmetry, but not the vindictive symmetry I had once anticipated. Rather, a balanced resolution to a story that had begun in the most painful of betrayals. My wife had run off with my best friend, and yes, I had married his daughter. But somewhere along that journey, revenge had transformed into love, calculation into genuine commitment. The perfect revenge had become the perfect second chance, not just for me, but for Sophia, for all of us attempting to build something new from the wreckage of betrayal. Later that night, as Sophia and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, she paused in the hotel suite, her wedding dress exchanged for a simple traveling outfit. "What's your name? What are you thinking?" she asked, catching me watching her with what must have been a reflective expression. About how differently things turned out than I expected, I admitted. "When I discovered Elise's affair with your father, I thought my life was over. That I'd never trust anyone again, never find happiness again. And now?" she prompted gently. "Now I'm happier than I've ever been," I told her truthfully. "With a wife I adore, a future I'm excited about, a life that's far better than the one I lost." She crossed the room to wrap her arms around me. "From endings come beginnings," she murmured. "From betrayal came us." As I held her close, as we prepared to embark on our honeymoon and the life beyond, I marveled at the strange path that had brought us together. Yes, it had begun with calculation, with the perfect revenge in mind, but it had culminated in the perfect love story. Unexpected, genuine, transformative. My wife had run off with my best friend, so I married his daughter, and in doing so, found a happiness greater than revenge could ever provide.